Wendy and Ted, are we all set?
Yeah.
That lady
Good to go?
sitting next to me
Okay.
is really mean.
Yeah.
Good, how you doing?
Good.
All right, we're ready when you are.
Julie, Randy, Julie. He's actually really, so I'll just give her.
He likes it.
Give her a hard time.
I'd like to call to order the Town of Fraser's Board of Trustees meeting Wednesday, November 19th, 2025 at 6:01 PM. Can I have a roll call, please?
Katie Fisher,
Adam Quicklin.
Julie White.
Katie Souls is online.
Yeah, Katie Souls.
And Brian Cirkvenik. Could I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes for October 29th, 2025, the minutes for November 5th, 2025, and Resolution 2025-1106, adopting the 2026 Joint Facilities Fund budget?
So moved.
Second.
Is there further discussion about this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So now we'll move on to open forum. This is for business not on the agenda. If you're here in the audience, you can approach the podium and have 3 minutes of time. If you're online, please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Okay, seeing none, we will continue to discussion and possible action regarding Board of County Commissioners update. We have two of our county commissioners, esteemed county commissioners, sitting at the table here. Why don't you guys introduce yourself and take it from there?
Sure. Hi, Ed Regner. I'm the commissioner for District 1. And essentially, if you go from the top of Berthoud Pass to the top of Red Dirt Hill, that's pretty much District 1. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
And I'm Randy George. I'm from District 3, which runs basically from Highway 34 to Rabbit Ears Pass. And the districts are divided by population. And so that's why his district is quite a bit smaller than mine, because the population density is quite a bit different. And you had some questions for us. I don't know if you want to pose those questions or how you want to approach this.
Do you have the order there, Ed, or in your guys?
Yep.
We do have some notes that came off of an email from you.
I can pull what I sent to.
Well, the first issue that we had was EMS site location.
Yeah.
So.
So sure, I could tell. We've been working with the police because they're looking to identify a new facility and to sort of make this process streamlined. Town of Winter Park had kind of taken the lead on identifying locations and negotiating with various stakeholders. So we've been working with them. A few spots have been identified and kind of kicked away. So we've been going through all those. One of our big things is we're looking for, we need to be east of the railroad tracks and would preferably be on the north side of downtown Fraser. We will still, we're double checking on this, but we believe we're always going to have an EMS crew at the Lakota station. So that's why we're looking to be north of Fraser there. The worst case scenario, and I want to emphasize that the worst case scenario is, we could rebuild in the current location, which I know, you guys have thoughts about that spot. So.
And we have thoughts about that spot too. It's not ideal for a number of reasons. So yeah, help us with the search. We're still looking. And whatever we can come up with, whatever suggestions you can have along the way that we could explore would be well worth it.
You guys are still looking at the joint facility approach.
I think that just depends if it's convenient to work together and we can reduce the burden of property and building costs. And that would be ideal. One of the problems with the one station location that was looked at was there were some concerns and restrictions about lights and sirens and all that. And I think that is always a problem when you try to build in a town. So maybe we have to be a little bit out of town.
Location, location, location.
Indeed.
Mm.
So any other questions about that? That's, we're there where we want to do something. We're, as you know, EMS Station 1 is in Granby and there's a new building being constructed there near the hospital. And that's going to be a fantastic facility for decades to come. And it will have public meeting room facility and training opportunity facilities and all that sort of thing in there, which will be great. It looks quite large. And one of the reasons for that is, as we all know, living up here, particularly in the winter, trying to keep those hundreds of $1,000 ambulances out of the weather and ready to roll at a moment's notice is going to be very, very helpful for that. So that's a big part of what's going on there. Plus, of course, obviously they have to have crews sleeping there. So that's that's coming along, and we're very excited about that.
How many bays are there for ambulances?
Don't remember right off the top of my head, but it's enough for all that they anticipate having there, and command vehicles as well. It's sizable.
Yeah.
And then
I mean,
there's
it looks
also
like-
room for, because they do maintenance in-house. So there's also, maintenance bay in
There's a
there.
lift
So
and all those
with a
kinds of
lift and all
things.
that kind of thing. So
Oh, okay. It's right by the water treatment plant right there, right?
It's right across from the hospital, just right.
They have a small, I think, water treatment plant out that way.
Right.
Yeah, but I would say the hospital's probably the best marker.
yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think that the size of that facility will allow this one to be smaller, or will things be centralized out there a little bit? Like you said, training facility.
Yeah.
Right, for training and that sort of thing. But that's done in Granby now anyhow, in a much
Mhm.
more modest, even dilapidated facility.
Mm.
So I don't think it would make any difference in terms of the size of what we're talking about here.
Okay.
You were basically talking about being able to have one crew stationed here, just like
Mhm.
one crew at Lakota and one crew over in Kremling.
Still rotating like they always have done. The crews.
How do you mean rotating? You mean rotating between the various
Right. Okay.
stations?
Don't the crews rotate? Like they'll stay coming for a little bit, then they go to Granby, then they come to Fraser.
You know, I don't know that. Do you?
I'm not sure. I thought they were going to be dedicated out.
Fraser. I think they. I just know that because they come to the restaurant and they're different.
I believe that is correct. They do.
Okay.
They're on rotation.
They're not
Yeah.
always in Fraser.
Oh, yeah.
So that gives
That-
everyone a
yeah.
chance to use the nice one.
Yeah, they're
as
not
well.
always in the
Like
same
that.
place. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The one in Granby. I'm going to give you a pretty close approximation. I want to say it's 32 million. Wow, I was right. Yeah. So the county borrowed money for that with a certificates of participation financing method. Our anticipation, our hope is that the other buildings that we're planning to build will not require that because we have some money saved. But we've gotten a number of grants to help fund that, so that's good too.
Cool.
So then the next thing that you were talking about was what's the status of the Fraser Parkway extension, County Road 522? And that's only been discussed for, I don't know, decades now, maybe it is. We continue to move forward on that. There was a considerable hangup over Corps of Engineer and wetland mitigation issues, right? We believe we have that resolved with there's a wetland plan now where we're able to buy credits to um, use the development of wetlands going on elsewhere to apply to the wetlands that would be sacrificed for this particular road. And so with that, that requires that the Corps of Engineers approve it. And the Corps of Engineers looked at it and said, well, it's gone on for a while here and we've extended it once. Before we extend it again, we need to make sure that some other things are taken care of. One of those has to do with renewal of the MOU with the State Historical Preservation Office, and another has to do with the CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and a water quality certificate. A couple of those things need to be renewed, and once they are, then we have been told by the Corps of Engineers that they will grant the permit, and then we'll be at a position where we can move ahead with that. One of the next things that we're talking about there, though, is that we're beginning to re-enter negotiations with the property owners for the right of way through that property. So that's where that is. I think another piece of that is that we don't know exactly what the town of Fraser's plans are in terms of potential expansion, annexation. And if you're going to be annexing anything out there, we would certainly expect that the town will require that the County Road 522 right of way through the Jones Trust property and the annexation negotiations would require that and any development plan would require that right of way is dedicated. So we would be eager to know what your plans are if you have any that are able to be discussed at this point. And the county engineer will create a construction bid packet. And, if you're interested in seeing any of the engineering or any of the survey data related to that road, once we get an approval from the Corps of Engineers, we'll be happy to share that with you. It's nothing that we're trying to keep secret or anything.
Sure.
13 years ago.
Does he need to go to
Yeah.
the microphone? I don't know. Yeah.
Hi, Clark Lipscomb. For the record, I believe the county obtained that wetland permit 13 years ago, maybe 14 years ago. Okay. And why is there no motivation to get this done? I mean, like letting the wetland mitigation that's like the tail wagging the dog. I mean, the fact of the matter is there's not that much mitigation to be done. It's pretty de minimis. And I've heard this excuse from your county manager, et cetera, but I just don't believe it. I personally have built a lot of wetland mitigation. Okay. And it's not that expensive. It's going to be far less expensive than, your EMS station or the cost of the road even. So, I mean, I just kind of feel like the county really doesn't want to or is not motivated to actually get this done. And frankly, the part I really care about is from 721 currently to County Road 5, the ball fields, which I think is a huge benefit for kids, access to the fields, so on and so forth for our community. I could care less about the piece going to Tabernash. And I'm not sure that's really beneficial anyway, but can you answer that question? Because I really, either somebody doesn't know what they're doing or they're just making excuses for not getting it done because it doesn't take that long to build stuff like this.
So
Thank you.
I have a couple of comments to that. First of all, the phase that is proposed initially to work on is that southern part that you've talked about. So we concur that that's the most important part, right? And I don't know that I can give you a quick answer that says, yeah, this is something that should have been done, could have been done, whatever. I just know that we've gone back and forth with the wetlands consultants and the Corps of Engineers, and it just seemed like it was very difficult to find the appropriate place. for the mitigation that they would accept. And we're very thankful that this opportunity to buy the credits has come along, because that's going to, it's going to save a significant amount of money to buy those credits as opposed to create the wetlands and be responsible for those in perpetuity.
Commissioner George, do you guys have it? Was it with the Forest Service for those credits?
It's
If
actually
you're
the
not-
Forest Service Foundation, I think, is the one that's doing it.
Do
Yes.
you guys have the purchase agreement with them for those credits?
We do have an agreement with them at this point,
Great.
and obviously that won't be executed until the Corps agrees that these other things are in line. But the Corps has said, yeah, we are very happy that those credits are the way you're going to go.
Is that mitigation bank located in Grant County?
It is.
Mhm.
I think it's up Highway 125.
Yep. And then I believe there's some by the Granby Rodeo Grounds. I think it's two pieces, right?
No, the Granby Rodeo Grounds piece was one of the areas that was suggested.
That's right. Yeah. So they
yeah.
just did the up by one.
And initially, we were going to do the mitigation at the water treatment plant there, Tabernash. And then they have said that they needed that for expansion. And so then the search was on for another place. But anyhow, I think all that's taken care of. And to Clark's point, my hope is that this will be happening. Construction, I'm guessing, could start in 26, but it might be 27.
So what does Fraser need to do to help speed up the process? We need to, I mean, do we have to do?
So we've included the conversation about like any type of right-of-way dedication for this. We're still doing some preliminary work for water rights, doing some consultation to get deeper into what the water right conversion could be for the existing irrigation right that could be transposed to commercial residential use, and then further even more to groundwater, if we were able to use the water rights, specifically on the east side of Highway 40 and north of County Road 8. That's where the water is, because we can't do any annexation without water, and then that's always been the missing link. So we have that study that hopefully we should be getting the information back from that early next year. But once we have that in hand, it just is going to make for a lot more constructive conversations for annexation. But I've spoken with the broker multiple times about those right of ways, and just it's not part of the property that they own, but just an understanding that that's something that we would need. But if that is annexed in, then we would absolutely advocate for that right of way. You guys have talked about just negotiating for those right-of-way acquisitions. Do you guys have any type of a deadline for if you're not able to find the friendly condemnation route?
We're hoping that it doesn't have to be a condemnation route, that it can be a purchase.
Sure.
So that's, and we did have agreement.
Yeah.
But we waited on that because we didn't have the wetlands piece put together yet. So now the wetlands piece is coming together. It's time to go back and sort out the purchase of that right away.
So, just so I understand the county's goal, you're moving forward with that purchase of the right of way, kind of regardless of what the town does, I'm assuming. And then if we do annex it in, are you wanting the town to take acceptance of the road? I guess I'm not clear on the right of way piece.
Yeah, well, it would be good for the town to own the road
Yeah.
at that point.
But I think what Commissioner George is saying is just because they're trying to get the right of ways for the road, that if we do look at any annexation before they get the right of way, which I don't know if it's going to happen, hopefully before
The
you guys.
timeframe that you mentioned, it seems a lot faster than any annexation would happen.
Yeah, and I think you guys likely have more chances of getting that road piece.
But as
constructed.
Clark pointed out, it has been quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
It is anticipated, though. I mean, I believe that we anticipate Eisenhower going straight through and teeing into that and making greater regional travel routes.
and obviously there are some people in the area that are anxious about what it is going to mean for traffic in their area. And the county will also have to deal with some of those issues at if we get extended up farther to the north, all the way up toward Tabernash. There is some work that's in progress right now at that intersection by the ball fields, because that whole intersection needs to be aligned differently so that it's a straight across instead of the offset that's there now. So that's another piece that's being worked on at the moment.
Streets.
Does that help?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the impacts to, like the boreal toads in that area? Wasn't that found in one of the environmental studies that was done for the Fraser Parkway? Or,
I am not remembering anything about boreal toads in that
I
area. but-
believe and this is a little bit of a stretch because this was before I was a commissioner, but I do remember that report came out that there was the boreal toads were out there, and there is a workaround. And I think that, I mean, like I said, that was several, and that was like 9 years ago, I believe, and it was quite a while ago. And I know there is a workaround that everybody found satisfactory, but like I said, that was before I was a commissioner, but obviously we're not going to go forward if
an endangered
an
species?
endangered species is in the path.
And of course, part of that whole development has to do with the bike path along it as well.
Which is great.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And then I think probably there's the next two items are somehow related. One of them has to do with public transit. And you had sent some information to us, basically outlining the fact that you have a Lyft Transit Services Fund, and that is not projected to be adequate to cover the costs of your share of the transit coming up in 26 or 27.
So we do have some unassigned balance that we'll be using for next year if that is approved by the board. But currently, the way that we are budgeting for next year is that the new revenues coming in from our dedicated 1% sales tax will not be able to cover the costs of those transit services. So we'll be relying on unassigned fund balance, which is only going to last for 1 to 2 years. But that's just been a concern from the board and just discussion about with the increase for the lodging tax. Any discussion with the Board of County Commissioners as far as contributing towards the public transit services here in the county.
And I would like to make a clarification. Fraser is actually being requested to provide a greater portion of the budget than our ridership share. So our ridership share is about 18%. We currently pay about 22% of the budget. And the current request takes that up to about 26% of their overall budget. So Fraser is covering more than our ridership share at this time.
Public transit is a somewhat thorny issue in terms of trying to figure out some things. First of all, I guess I would say, is everybody committed to the fact that this should be a free service for the riders? Or does it need to be something for which there's a fee that the riders have to pay? Another piece of that whole situation is obviously that public transportation like this is very helpful because it keeps individual autos off the road, but it also allows a lot of people to come from outside of the town into Fraser for restaurants or shopping or whatever, right? And same thing for Winter Park. And so that traffic benefits the whole area, right? There was a grant request for some of those funds to help support the lift out of the increase in the tourism tax from this past year. And I don't remember what that dollar amount was, right off, but that is a potential source that's available, but it's on a grant basis. And I kind of mentioned that in connection with the second one, because you asked about childcare dollars, right, coming out of 1A, and the there's got to be some decisions made that way, and there is an advisory board that's trying to parse out those um, grants so that we don't end up with everything going to childcare or everything going to transportation or everything going to um, affordable housing or whatever it might be. But there's only so much money there too. And I think the projection is it might be as much as $1 million a year. Um, and we've been through the first round of grants on that. And some of that did go to the lift.
Mhm.
Another piece of that is the county did provide the land on which the lift facility is built, and it's a $10 a year lease for 50 years to the transportation. And so that's a significant contribution in terms of that land as well. Do you have some more comments
I
about
would
it?
say, I mean, the one thing I mean, and I think I don't want to quibble, but I think it's $1. Actually, I believe
No,
it's 10.
put $10 in there. It's $10.
I thought it was one. Anyway, we'll see. We can maybe knock $9 off of that. So, no, but I think that that is a substantial. That's that was always the original concept that was what we brought to the table was we brought the land to the table and the towns would bring it in. And I think that part of it too is, I know that there's Winter Park Ranch is unincorporated grand, but there's no retail, and that was kind of the whole idea was that transportation was supposed to be funded by sales tax. Well, there's no retail up in that area, but those folks staying in, Meadow Ridge and Winter Park Ranch, they're taking the bus to Safeway and hopefully, to Fishers, or where have you. So, that's kind of where that's at. But, we can certainly look at that community priorities fund and hopefully to help for you guys with that. But the concern I always have with that is then you're going year by year on grant programs, and that's then you're kind of rolling the dice every year. So
And that brings up the larger question that's been discussed in terms of a regional transportation authority and trying to deal with the funding for all of this through that. Has there been serious discussion? I mean, you sit on you go to those
it's
board
been
meetings.
talked about in broad strokes. There's not been anything definitive or hard on that conversation.
So I know the town of Winter Park is working on that regional transportation authority for to support the aerial transit system / the gondola. And I know once they have that established, we do have a scheduled conversation with the town of Winter Park about a larger RTA or even just within the valley type of RTA. And so we're having conversations about it, but nothing definitive yet. I know that the critical path is for the one that's in Winter Park right now to support the gondola.
And talking with Charles about that is, if we can get an RTA, that opens up a lot of funding avenues as well, which would solve a lot of problems for all of us. So,
Right. And that, as you talk about that, I think the larger that RTA is, the better. Right. So including Grand B and maybe even Grand Lake in that. Probably not hot sulfur and Kremling and all that because I don't think there's going to be that much ridership over there. There might be, but.
Right. Yeah, I think obviously, good to note that you guys donated the land. We needed that facility for sure. But currently you're contributing about 50K a year to the whole transit system. And I think, we need to look at this as an economic driver for the entire county, which is, why the county should kind of come to the table a little more. I think connecting Grand Lake to Granby to Fraser to Winter Park would be huge. Like you said, getting cars off the road, but also just getting people around the county to spend money in different places, and it's a huge amenity. And on top of that, it's a bit of competition. You go over to Vail, the bus service is free. Tourists will look at that. Tourists will say, well, we don't need a car because they have a free bus. If we start charging here, then they might not look here, even if it's $1. you know, it's more of the pain of having to pay instead of just stepping on the bus.
Right.
Sure. I mean, I think, and we tried to come up with, there was a valuation that was put on that, and um,
On the property.
on the property, and and we were trying to put a hard number on it, and we were not able to find it, but it's in the neighborhood. I mean, if we just lease that land, it would be, in the neighborhood between like $400,000 and $600,000 a year. So that it's not, it's
not
a
nothing.
significant
Yeah.
contribution. Yeah. So, but it is noted, that's something we can discuss for sure.
And we use that approach as well with one of our nonprofits. We've dedicated land.
Yeah.
And discussed it yesterday, actually. So in lieu of annual appropriations. So
Mhm.
But I come back to the need for the regional transportation
Yeah.
authority.
Great.
And I don't know if you have a sense at all. I mean, obviously, nobody likes to see a tax increase, right? But do you have a sense at all about the popularity of that among the voters? You're shaking your head.
It's gonna go.
we're pretty maxed out on sales
Right.
tax.
How are regional transit authorities typically funded? Is it a sales tax?
I think typically it is.
Well, they would loop they would take the current funding that's in there. And then, like I said, it opens you up for a lot more funding opportunities with grants and such. So that's where, a regional transit authority would be very beneficial.
Way they can be funded by a mill levy as well. But there's options.
Hi, Michael has a letter from Grand Park on this very subject. I'm very familiar with it. We've proposed to help the town with its issues that we would propose a regional transit authority and put one in place over Grand Park. It's funded through property tax mill levy override is the most typical fashion. We proposed that when they did the sales tax deal originally. And the mayor at the time was convinced that they couldn't pass the property tax increase. So they went the sales tax route, which we knew would tap out and effectively taxes all the people that shop here. Not, really the properties, and particularly a lot of the people that are using this system being second homeowners, et cetera, vacation rentals, et cetera. So I mean, I think there is an avenue to create it. We've laid it out. I believe one of my project managers just asked to put it on the agenda for discussion with the town board. Which would, if we did that, it would take it off the plate of the current transit system needing to expand on what is a very large part of Fraser. It had some other components in it that I'm not going to belabor here, but I do think it's feasible with the stage of the system today that you could pass an RTA, but you would need to give up the sales tax, probably quid pro quo, to be able to achieve that. And I think that would be fine, depending on what the mill levy was, right? But you'll just have a whole lot more people paying in. So anyway, to answer your question, since I have just done a whole lot of homework on this particular subject.
I see some challenges to that, or the sales tax is not specific to just the transit system. It's a broader cause than that. I also, the concerns I have with the increase in funding for Fraser's, the request from for Fraser to increase its funding is that we're going into reserves, and that's a 1 or 2 year fix, and then we would be dropping way back based on our sales tax revenue once those reserves are used up. So it really truly is a temporary fix if we proceed down the road that we're on.
And you're talking about the trail component that it was passed on.
Yeah,
Probably
there's
without including
capitals and
trail.
trails and
Yeah, without including
there's
trails,
there's
it
other
wouldn't have passed.
components to it
Yeah, and I
that
think-
aren't getting funded at all.
And I think very little has been contributed towards trails. Since it was voted
Exactly.
in.
Yeah, thanks. And
Agreed.
not that that's right or wrong, but
Yeah.
it's a limited fund and it's not exclusive to just the transit system. So there would be some challenges there, I think, as well.
Sounds like it's time to start your PR campaign. I mean, really, but for all of us.
Yeah, that the time is coming. Yeah.
Okay, so childcare dollars is one of the things that was mentioned as well. And again, that money is coming from the increase in the tourism tax, and it was just a 2/10, 0.02%. We went no 0.2%. So it was a 10% increase in the tourism tax, which was not a lot, right? But it allowed then for other uses, which was the importance of that vote. And we just saw the figures the other day. The tourism tax is running almost exactly the same so far this year as it did last year. It's actually 10% up, which is the exact increase in the fee that is being charged. So what that's saying is the base dollar amount that on which the tax is levied has stayed constant, which is great because there was some projection that that the whole economy might dip some, right? Um, so that this year we decided that a certain amount of that money would go into this Community Priorities Fund, and again, grants are available on the Communities Priority Fund. Uh, and as you know, I know you've been involved in the discussions about childcare and the recommendations for the overall childcare plan. Um, it's going to be important for people to come to consensus on what that is, because I think there's some components in there that maybe there are some components that were overlooked as potential. For example, there does not seem to be an appetite in that plan for um, charging market rate and then providing subsidy to the people who economically are incapable of affording it. I'm not quite sure why that didn't seem to be very popular, but so some of those discussions need to be wrangled out yet, but I anticipate, and we're not going to make any guarantees, but I would anticipate that something similar to what was available this first go round will be available the second go round and then on into the future to help support childcare. And the question in particular, I think, had to do with facility subsidies. But again, what's the best approach to that? And I know some of that discussion that had gone on earlier had a very big component that was to be developing an endowment fund that was going to generate a lot of money to be able to support this. And so all those pieces, I think, were a little bit premature in terms of how those are going to work out. But there continues to be some money, I believe, that will be available through that increase in the tourism tax and the change in the uses there that'll be able to go into childcare.
I would also say, in this first cycle and for the next cycle, the plan is to take some of the funds and just put it to the side so we can actually build a fund balance in there so that um, not the next cycle, but the cycle after that, there'll actually be more funds going out in there. So, and we created the Community Priorities Fund, and it's a pretty robust way to do things. It's sort of in the Grant Foundation model is that, the grants go to that committee. There's one from each of our districts. A few other people sit on it. I do as well. And they sort of vet all the grants, and then the grants come to us as commissioners, and we approve them. So it's been a system we found that works. So.
How are we doing on time on your agenda? Are we still okay?
I think this is the last item that we had on the agenda for them, but just for a point of clarification, the 2% lodging tax is 50% of that going towards the community fund? Is that how you guys have allocated that?
50% of that is dedicated toward the traditional tourism expenditures, right? And then of the remaining 50%, at least 30% goes to the Community Priorities Fund. The other 20% annually will be allocated one way or the other as there appears to be the need. And at least at this point, it appears for the next year or two or so that 50%, then the 20 will be added to the 30 for the Community's Priority Fund. because there's still some reserve that the tourism board is spending down. They had a pretty big fund balance. And right after COVID, they saw a big or during COVID and right afterwards, they saw a big bump in their uh, tourism tax revenues. And they weren't spending nearly as fast as it was coming in, which was good because we didn't think that we needed to do that. But it's appropriate for them to have some reserve in case we have one of those times when we really do, because tourism is what, 70% of our economy? So if we have a significant downturn, for them to have a reserve to be able to ramp up some things to try to draw more people here, that could be very important for the entire community. So anyhow, I think it'll be 50-50 for a while. That was the long answer to your short question. You had one other thing, and I wasn't even sure what you meant. It was federal/state impacts to federal lands for operating and financials.
Yeah, we
What
talked
did that
about-
mean?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the meeting before, but just if you guys are aware of any of the impacts to the federally operated lands, impacts to federal funds for the Forest Service, BLM, that was just a question that was posed by our board, but I can maybe track down maybe a better resource of someone who's more involved in that to get that answer for our board.
In other words, the question has to do with will the federal government, for example, continue to fund the necessary operations to manage the U.S. Forest Service or the BLM?
Correct.
They won't.
Right. It's just to what degree, I think is the
Yeah.
question, which I can get an answer.
Now we have a time. We sit about once every, like, what is it, every other month that we sit with, the guys from CPW, U.S. Forest Service, National Forest Service.
Grand Places 2050.
Grand Places 2050 as well. No, I'm talking about the resource breakfast
On the
that we have.
resource breakfast.
And it's at every single one of those meetings, it's kind of, we get this a lot, so
They don't even know.
They don't even know. And so it's definitely a moving target. I think trying to figure out, I think the expectation that we will be getting less is certainly there. And then it's just coming up with solutions to how we deal with it. And then, we sit on Grand Places 2050, and that's, as well, dealing with the stewardship of the lands and how do we fill in those gaps. So, and I sit on that. We meet tomorrow. So that's always a good one. On that topic, we're still working on our 1041 plans. So that's a work in progress right now, but just trying to figure out what do we do.
And can you define what the 1041 plans are?
So a 1041 plan is essentially, how it's permitting for things like oil wells, solar panels, all those kind of things. And, the concern being, there's literally solar farms out there, and I don't think anybody wants to, be driving down Highway 40 and seeing a whole, field full of 1,000-acre solar farms. So as solar farms, windmills, all those kind of things is how energy resources come in. So we're working on a plan to protect the county as best as we can. So that's a work in progress right now. And then the last is, if you guys are familiar with the PILT, the payment in lieu fees. So, and that's always just a year by year basis. We've been for years trying to get that codified where it's a solid every year, basically because we have so much public land, we don't collect taxes on that. So the federal government subsidizes things like our schools and our roads. So we are looking like the PILT funds came through this year, and then we're just going to start fighting again for next year's.
When you mentioned the shrug response from the administrators, we get that from the regional level as well. And we periodically have opportunities to talk with Goose and Bennett and Hickenlooper, and they can't give a straight answer either because they're just one part of the larger federal government, and they're not able to give us a firm answer on how that funding is going to go.
Okay. It does seem like our grassroots nonprofit or NGO organizations are really picking up the slack, though. Between HTA and Wildfire Council and other entities, they're really starting to fulfill a lot of those roles that the federals used to play or that are in jeopardy. So kudos, it's just to our county entities that are doing more with less, I think.
Absolutely. They've done a lot that's really valuable. It's unfortunate that they've had to.
Yep.
But on the other hand, I know that many people are passionate about that. And so that's a great thing that they're willing to spend the time and effort to do that. And obviously, some of the open lands, rivers, and trails tax money
Mhm.
goes into that to help make that happen. And there are some crazy stories like Summit County paid the Forest Service to do wildfire mitigation. Then there was all this drawback at the federal level this past year, right? And they cut off all this funding, at least put it in a pause on it. And Summit County could not get their funding back, right? Because it was frozen. And they couldn't, the agency couldn't hire the people to do the funding, to do the work that the funding was supposed to be for. So you got to be careful in terms of how much slack you pick up, because there is going to be a tendency. What was it? You said it's like feeding the bear?
It's like feeding a bear, it's, the more we do, the less they're going to want to do. And, it's, you see some of these agencies are, almost hesitating because they know if they wait, someone will pick up the slack. So um, it's an interesting time trying to figure out how to balance all that.
So you're saying now is the perfect time to build a mountain bike trail from the top of Berthoud down?
As long as we can make that a part of the 4-lane that comes down from the top
Yeah.
of Berthoud, right?
Right, right.
I have another question. What are we gonna do about red dirt and how are we gonna keep people safe on our roads? I think that's a burning question lately. You guys have any plans?
So, I mean, as you guys know, 40 is a state road. So, we, with Brian, with Nick, with all the municipalities, lobby as hard as we can. We went yesterday they had the operations meeting for what's going to happen on Berthoud Pass. And even though it was not something that was supposed to be discussed there, it was something that I brought up. As you travel over red dirt right now, as you see where they finished the construction, the road was not crowned correctly. So basically it wasn't angled right. So you can just see there's a flat spot where there's just standing water, which is ice, as we all know. So we've brought that to the attention of CDOT. All we can really do is lobby and
Right.
and yell as loud as we can. And I can't remember, I think it was last year or the year before, but there was a coordinated effort where everybody called CDOT in the same hour period. And I think that's something we might consider doing again because it actually brought attention to things. And, as you guys, I don't know if you know, there's another fatality today.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, fatalities do draw attention. It's a horrible way to get attention to these things, but that's, I think, we're now on fatality number 11 for that stretch of road this year. So, but it's not our road.
Right.
Even if we wanted to work on it, even if we had the money and the facility and the staff to work on it, we legally cannot work on 40. So, all we can really do is
Of course
lobby
not.
at CDOT as hard as we can. And I'll tell you, Brian does a really good job, lobbying with CDOT and working with our TPR, trying to get funding allocated over here.
So it's not a satisfying answer. But basically, every time we get together with CDOT, we pound on the table and we say, the road is in terrible shape and it's not safe. Let's do something about it. And they say, right, we'll start thinking about that. And then we'll start planning about that. And then we'll make a plan and have it on the shelf. And then we'll try to come up with funding for it. It's tragic.
Yep.
Is there anything that residents can do? Can they lobby them for themselves? Can they advocate for themselves in any way? Is there anyone they should call? I know people are pretty passionate about it.
Yes. And I would suggest that you call our area's commissioner on the state transportation commission, and his name is
Rick Ritter.
Rick Ritter.
What's his number?
I've got it.
He's got the number and
Oh, so
and
it's-
the
it's his
email.
job.
Rick Ritter would be the guy to bombard with your requests.
But I would say I've been having a lot of conversations with people in the last month or so. And I think the idea of doing, I'm trying to remember who it was, but someone went out actually and hung flyers all, I don't even remember. This was like, here's the number, press for, say you're from Grant County.
Dennis.
So, was that? Yeah, you remember that? So, I mean, I think that we need to coordinate another one of those.
Today.
Yeah. No, I know.
It's insane.
It's up to the chair.
I hope everyone knows at the table that Rick Ritter's daughter ran Polis's campaign.
I knew that.
I mean, he has political ties to Polis for sure.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of this is Todd Holsworth, East Grand Fire Chief, and I was up there today at mostly afternoon. I wasn't aware of the flat spot with the drainage, but two other issues they didn't take care of with red dirt, which I thought they were. One of them was post-construction, and that's the lack of attenuation devices on the end of the poured concrete New Jersey barriers. There's just piles of dirt on the end of them. That's not going to last. And they didn't take care of County Road 54 access.
Yep.
It's still a mess, westbound. So 3 things on red dirt. Other than that,
So we have done our part to make sure that CDOT is aware of all those problems, but it's people talk about the speed of government, and then I would say that then you could talk about the speed of CDOT, which is the slowest thing I've ever seen.
then
So
next year we do have the rebuild from basically that location all the way to almost Fraser.
yeah.
But it just, and the attenuation on the end of those New Jersey barriers, we had a similar problem from the rebuild from Beavers to the main entrance of the ski area. And I complained about the way it was done. And I got to do I told you so to the folks when we had a fatality from hitting the end of that barrier. So
It was
I
almost
don't want to
better
have that happen
before.
again.
Red dirt was better before.
I don't know if I'd say that, but there's better shoulders. It's improved, but it they didn't take care of the problems that they could have.
I would posit that some things are better and some things are worse.
So we're gonna let them do that from Granby to Fraser. Just take our chances that it's gonna be better.
I would say, I mean, like I said, it's not up to us. I mean, if it was up to us, we would do a lot more. Like all we can do is go to these meetings and lobby and ask and, look over their shoulders and put our opinions in on how things are done. But at the end of the day, CDOT does what CDOT cares to do. And that's.
But loud voices do tend to sway CDOT. So, yeah.
So what's Rick Ritter's number?
I couldn't find it, but I found his email address. But I think it's not his official one. So let me find his official one, and I can tell you guys by the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here,
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
and we'd welcome an invitation back anytime.
All right.
I think this is really good, really healthy thing to do. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Okay. Next up, Treasurer's Report. Lori is online.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Trustees. Lori Waters, Finance Director for the town of Fraser. I hope you can hear me okay. Okay, Treasurer's Report. We're going over all the good stuff, statement of funds, sales tax revenue, short-term tax revenue, remote sellers, and budget expenditures analysis, plus the levels of the funds. So here we are with the reserve position, October. We're starting to see, St. Louis Landing is going vertical. So that's starting to show up in our funds. Good news to report is we did just submit for strong communities, more housing now, early childhood, and public works development, or excuse me, planning. We submitted grant requests for a total of $816,038, and that should help offset some of those expenditures. We've got Public Works busy. I think I wrote in my report that they were ready and waiting for snow. Well, it snowed, and they went out and did a great job getting everything cleaned up. And yeah, St. Louis Landing is vertical. Church renovations are almost done, and lots of activity going on in the town. Here are the funds, the cash allocation of the funds. This is as of 10/31. So yeah, general fund, 9,671,000. Restricted revenue, the big change is just the general fund. Everything else is holding approximately where it was from last month. So, but yeah, the general fund is seeing the biggest action thanks to St. Louis Landing. Continuing on to sales tax revenue. This was a little bit of good news. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Your sales tax revenue for October was it's the October collection. Sorry, it's what we received in November. So this revenue is collected in October and it's for the month of September. And it was $7,241 higher than the prior year. And that's a 1.47 increase over 2024. Last month, I was a little worried because we kind of had a drop of 3%, but we're back up with a 1.4% increase. So that was kind of good news. The short-term rental tax revenue, again, great performance for that month. So again, it's still at 11% of total revenue, but it did increase by 11.49% over the same time last year. So you're right here. Which is great. Still can't explain that short-term rentals are doing great. And, we're getting, a lot of visitors in town. So that's kind of helping to keep things moving. For some of us, maybe we're kind of bummed because we don't get as long of an off season, but there they are. And then remote sellers with October, I mean, it was almost the same as last month. So that was about 2.39% higher than October 2024. So again, holding steady with the revenue coming in. Then the budget expenditure analysis, the general fund, oops, I've been staring at a lot of spreadsheets. I apologize for that. That was a mistake. The actual budget is the 16 million. The actual expenditures is $14,757 or 14,757,712, which is actually 90.6% of the budgeted. But what's going on right now is as I'm working through the Fraser Housing Authority and getting the bridge loan accounted for, that number should not necessarily increase, but it's been a process making sure The Housing Authority bridge loan, which is now showing up here, and what's been expensed. I'm having to go back through a lot of the invoicing from More Housing Now because I have to separate out the expenditures that are going to actually attribute to the bridge loan from the expenditures that are accounted for in the grant funding. So that's been a bit of uh, a new challenge for me, and but we're going to get that all straightened out before final budget submittal. So does anybody have any questions?
You said in the general fund, we were at $14 million in expenditures?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
this number right there is a mistake.
Oh, okay, that's.
I completely apologize. Like I
no,
said, a lot of spreadsheets.
So we're at
Yeah, I was just,
90.2.
it seemed like it was decimal in the wrong place, or, okay.
And
That's,
so
Yeah.
she said we're at 90.
I was making sure I was
90.2.
following correctly.
Yeah, we're
90.2
at
over 90.
closer
I
to
heard Jeff, but I was just making sure I was in the right place.
yeah.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'll stop sharing and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori. Okay.
Move.
Moving on to Resolution 2021-1105, authorizing a memorandum of understanding with Fraser Valley Community Media, FVCM, operator of KFFR 88.3 FM and KWTR 89.1 FM. Ryan Wilson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Wilson. I'm the executive director of Fraser Valley Community Media. And it's a kind of a really exciting moment right now. For the past 8 years, we've kind of worked with the town of Fraser, and you guys have always asked, why does it say Winter Park at the end of the radio station? Well, now we say Fraser. And that's thanks to a new radio station, KWTR 89.1 FM, and its city of license is Fraser. And so we are simulcasting on both stations, and so people are hearing the term or the word Fraser every single day, every single hour, and we're really excited about that. I think it's interesting we had two commissioners here, but one commissioner was not here, and I had him on my slide. So this was at our ribbon cutting here in Granby Ranch. So how KWTR came about is we were able to move KFFR to the top of Granby Ranch, which is expanded our reach throughout most of the county. People are picking it up in Kremling. I was able to pick it up all the way over on Rabbit Ears Pass, believe it or not. So we are now really Grand County Community Radio, and we are thrilled to be housed in the town of Fraser. Couldn't imagine a better partnership. So what I'm here today is I want to talk about a few different things. Really about the importance of the partnership we have with Fraser, kind of what the state of the station is and what we plan on continuing to do. And finally, the word I want you to think about is the word more. How can you utilize us more? And just kind of listening so far in this board meeting, I think there's a lot of things that came up in my mind. A PR campaign for the Transit Authority. Well, guess what's a great place for that PR campaign? KFFR and KWTR. Updates on the bypass. I know the bypass has been something that's been talked about forever. I know people would love to learn more about what's happening. If that's really going to break ground in the next couple of years, we want to make sure that people know about that in our community. The driving traffic to Fraser and with the buses. Now that we are in Grand Lake, now that we are in Granby, we can drive traffic here more than we've ever been able to drive that traffic. And so kind of keep that in mind. We just had the Grand Foundation on our public affairs show right before this meeting, and we're talking about all the resources that are available in the community. And so that's just another way that I encourage you to think about using this big megaphone that you have in your own town. Fire preparedness. You know, we are really working hard, and I'll talk a little bit about more detail on that, on how we want to be the source of content if there is another natural disaster. And I think we're really close to doing that. Of course, we hosted Congressman Nagoose over in Grand Lake and had a really great conversation with the Wildfire Council about what people can do for fire preparedness. And then call CDOT. Guess what? We could make a spot on KFFR that says, hey, let's call Rick Ritter. And everybody call him. There's nothing wrong with that. We could absolutely do that. That's what community radio is about. And so one of the things I'm really asking for is, yes, we're asking for money, but we're also asking for you to tell us what you want on the radio. This is your community radio station, everybody's community radio station, and we're working hard to represent as many people as we can. As you can kind of see on this front sheet, of course, I'm really excited that Steve Fitzgerald has just joined our board. We're going to be working a little bit more closely with Fraser Valley Arts, and we're really excited about some potential with that. This picture right here is me on top of Bullfrog. This is over at the top of the Mary Jane. That's where we're transmitting KWTR. And we're really excited that you can see straight into Fraser. And so the signal, if you're listening in Fraser, I really encourage you to listen to 89.1. It sounds better. It's got better connection. It's got a little bit of different programming, but 90% of the programming is the same between the two stations. And I want you to realize that KWTR is the station for Fraser. So if there's ideas that you have, if there's things that you want to do, we can utilize that station to promote what the town of Fraser is doing. And that's really a big part of what its mission is to do. In addition, it is K-Water is what we're referring it to. And so we're really trying to build up our programming to focus on being at the headwaters of the Colorado River and what that means and how can we inform our local community about that. And so that's where I really want to talk about, you know, our broadcast expansion. Mayor Sirk-Vinnick was there, and it was a great ribbon cutting. We're really excited that we're broadcasting 2 signals throughout the entire county. And just keep in mind that this did not happen just last year magically. This has been happening, and this has been in the works for about 4 years. We identified this as our goal, and we made it happen in this last year. Unfortunately, in the last year, we expected and we were told that we were going to get federal funding with the establishment of KWTR. What we were going to do with that federal funding, and we've been between $100,000 and $180,000, we would have built a news department and we would have been able to cover more information. The good news is we don't really need it. The bad news is we just have to work harder now. And we're really looking at a lot of different ways to do that. We're looking at citizen journalism. We're looking at different ways to get more stories on the air. But that kind of brings up our 2025 highlights. This last year was a banner year for KFFR and KWTR. We held more concerts in our studio, and I want you to really think about that from the town of Fraser, right? We're bringing that culture to the town of Fraser with these shows, and we're really excited that we're housed here to make that happen. We've had a band every single month play in our stage. We're recording that music, and then we're putting that into our library. You can actually tune in to KWTR on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. and hear these Blue Spruce shows. And they're really cool shows. And they're featuring the town of Fraser in that. So I think it's a really great highlight for the town of Fraser. More opportunity. We've had Sarah Catanzarite on our station a couple of times. We had Parks Thompson on our show once. And we're telling you guys, we're telling the community what you are doing, whether it's the DDA, whether it's the bike park. Please know that everybody on this council has an open invitation to come on and talk about what you're passionate about for the town of Fraser. We want your voices on there, so please don't hesitate to reach out. So our goals for 2026, More capacity. We have a staff now. It's not just me. So it's really exciting in that sense. We've got a staff of 5, 2 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff, and I'll talk a little bit about what they're doing. But we have more capacity to do more. We have more connections. We're working with the town of Grand Lake, the town of Granby. We're working with Destination Granby. We're working with the town of Winter Park to do a lot of different things throughout the entire county. But we're in Fraser, right? And so it's always coming back to supporting and highlighting Fraser. More community. We want every voice as possible on our station, and we are bringing people together. This county is big. I remember, I was a ski bum here in 1999, and I thought it was just kind of Winter Park and Fraser. I didn't really know the rest of the county. When I moved back 8 years ago, I'm like, wow, this county really is big. And what is the way to bring this county together? And in my mind, it is the radio station. I think that is what its goal is. That's my vision for it. How do we bring it all together? And that's what we're working on. So we basically have 4 goals for this next year. Strengthening our local news and information. Granted, we didn't get the Corporation for Public Broadcasting funding, but we are working closely with some key partners in the community to build things that promote news and information. One is our public affairs show, of course. We're working with Jeremy Crones, who is going to interview a bunch of old timers in the community, and we're going to put that as a show once a month. We're working with Sky High News. We've already done 2 pilots. Sky High News is going to come into the station, and they're going to talk about the headlines, and then we're going to dive deeper into some of the bigger issues that are going on in the county. And we're also looking at a couple other people talking about permaculture. We're looking at water reporting, of course, as well. So we're really excited on where that's going. We kind of hit a goal in this last year. And so this next year, we are working with a new board. We have a 8-person board now, 4 new members. And we're going to be planning for the next 5 years and the next 10 years. And so what does that look like? Do we have satellite stations around the county? What do we do to increase our signal in those dead spots? And so we're really going to be planning that. And I look forward to presenting that to you next year. We're working closely with the youth. I was at Middle Park High School on Monday. If you tune into KFFR on Wednesday mornings between 8:15 and 8:30, you'll actually hear students broadcasting from Middle Park High School on KFFR. And they have it as a class. We're working with a teacher, Sarah Rector, over there. And they go on every Monday and Wednesday, and they actually broadcast from Middle Park High School, and then we put that on the station. We're trying to grow the youth program or the youth sports program broadcasting. And I've got 5 new DJs that are ready to mentor youth and run more sports broadcasting, probably on KWTR. So we're really excited about putting that out and letting people be able to listen to that. And then probably the biggest, most important thing that we're working on is emergency preparedness. The Windy Gap fire took us out in the sense that the power went out at Granby Ranch, and then the power went out here in Fraser for 4 hours. My battery backup systems only lasted an hour, so we were actually down. And unfortunately, I was out of town that weekend. And so we need to fix this. And so we are applying for grants all across the county, and we are looking for battery backup systems. We have a plan in place. It's about a $25,000 project. I feel confident that we'll get that. So we will be on the air in the case of any kind of emergency. The other thing that's really cool is because we relocated our towers to the ski areas, we have natural fire breaks now. So the chances of a fire getting to our transmitters has definitely decreased significantly. So we can be there and we can be telling people the most important information that's out there in the case of an emergency. So that's kind of our goals for 2026. I want to look back real quick on 2025 and what we did for the town of Fraser. First thing, we have been broadcasting your Fraser Council briefs. I know that Sarah has a kind of an AI form or a podcast. Well, we are broadcasting that every Wednesday on KFFR and every Thursday and Saturday on KWTR. So anything that happens in these meetings can be heard on the local community radio station. We were there. We had live coverage of fire and ice. We were able to expand our signal all across that area, and our DJs played the music for that event. We had a booth and made announcements at the mural festival, and we were at the dealer takes four. Should not say devil takes four. Dealer takes four. Over here at Town Park, we broadcast that on KWTR. And then what we also did to promote the tourism of Fraser is we went around and got audio postcards. So we interviewed all of the different artists at those different events. And now we have that to promote the events coming up in this next year. We also had many people, whether it was Sarah, coming on for guest appearances. Mike Turner also has a show on Wednesday morning. Sarah Wick would often come in and talk about the things that the town of Fraser is doing during his show. Of course, we did promote the DDA and what the DDA is doing. We look forward to doing that more. We want to create a spot that says, hey, here's when those meetings are, and we'll be working to do that. And then, of course, we supported the Fraser Bike Park and getting that information out. And then we had the Fraser Master Plan. We had a whole public affairs show on the Fraser Master Plan the day that it was displayed over at the rec center. And we're really excited to promote St. Louis Landing and affordable housing. So please keep us in mind as that project continues to move forward. And then probably the most exciting, well, I don't know if it's the most exciting, but we are excited to host Mayor Sirk-Venick on our stage on December 17th, right? And he's going to give a State of the Community address on KFFR and KWTR. So we think that's a cool new addition to our community radio station. So what are we asking for? We're asking for the same thing we asked for last year. As far as I understand it, Sarah put this in her budget. I'm not sure if her budget's been approved or not, but I believe it is in her budget. So we're saying, give us the same amount of money as you did last year, and we're going to give you more service. So that seems like a good deal, right? We want to do more. We want to coordinate with the town staff and to get that information out. And I am literally pleading with you. If there's information that you think people misunderstand about the town of Fraser or what you guys are doing, please contact us and let us make a spot on that. Let us get you on the air for our public affairs show. We want to make sure that people know what is actually happening and not making things up in their head. We want those reminders about town council meetings. I don't know if you guys want that, but maybe tell people, hey, there's a town council meeting on these days. Like we didn't do that last year, and I think that would be something good. Again, we'll continue to air those Fraser Council summaries. We will be heavily involved in Fraser Fire and Ice. We'll be heavily involved in Mural Festival, plein air at altitude, and then also Picnic in the Park. We're excited to continue, and we want to broadcast at least one of those shows from Picnic in the Park. We want to really, continue the State of the Community broadcast. That wasn't actually in our plan last year, and Sarah and Brian came to us and we're like, this is a great idea. So we're excited to potentially do that year over year and maybe even encourage some of the other towns to do something like that. And then maybe make sure that we're covering those major initiatives. But I can't reiterate this enough. We can't do it unless you tell us what's going on. So Sarah's great and is always telling those things. But, if there's something that maybe you're not hearing or you feel like there's any kind of misinformation, please reach out. And so how are we going to do this? Is it stuck? There we go. So I guess I should say we are asking for 20,000. Now I'm going really fast. 20,000 like we did last year. And what we really appreciate with the town of Fraser is, we're using this for operations. We're making sure that we can operate the station, and grants and stuff are great, but at the end of the day, they don't pay the day-to-day operations. And so this money is really important, especially in light of the closing of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. I think you guys have it maybe in your packet, but just want to go over the staff and who we have real quick. Rachel Williams is our content producer. So she is on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. She recorded Brian actually today. She's got a little production room, and we are able to record things Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We're supporting a lot on Colorado Gives right now, and she's doing a lot of that work. Her story's great because she was an intern with KFFR for a year, and then she did such a great job and learned so much that we hired her. So it's really an example of growing our homegrown talent. Anastasia Button, she's from Kremling. I'm just going to stop with that. Anastasia joined us in March, and now she's kind of in charge of our underwriting, but she's been really helpful in creating processes to make sure that our communication is solid between everybody, whether it's a DJ, whether it's an underwriter, whether it's a business, whether it's another nonprofit. And we're really excited to have Joanna Goodman. Joanna Goodman's been our president of our board of directors for 4 years, and she knows everything about the organization, and we convinced her to become a staff member, and now she's organizing all of our events. So she'll be heavily involved in like our Fire and Ice collaboration, the Mural Fest collaboration. And then we just hired a new employee. She lives in Winter Park. Her name's Carly Moyer, and we're really excited about her. She's very passionate about community radio. She lived in LA for a while and did production work on like reality TV shows. So she's got a lot of skills. She understands storyboarding, and we're hoping to bring her on full-time next year. So our team is growing. What that means for the town of Fraser is we can provide more for you. Real quick, I just want to again thank the town of Fraser and being one of the first town to really utilize, I think, what this resource is for the community. You were the first one to allow us to have a town forum. I was just talking to Antoinette, and we'd like to do it again. I know that there's seats that are open and that it's going to be in November. We would love to host that again at KFFR Studios. Of course, it's great because you can be on the stage, people can come and see it, but they can also listen online and on the radio. But that really set the stage for us. That said, wow, we can be something that supports government transparency, that supports democracy, that supports knowledge throughout our community. And I believe the town of Fraser was a leader in that and seeing this potential. And now we're doing it on a bigger level. And so I am here to just say that we have a shared mission. I think we have a lasting impact, and our collaboration is making massive improvements in our community and throughout the entire county. So thank you for your support, and I hope to continue that support and collaboration in the future. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Not really a question. I received your email on your survey and I was filling it out, and it seemed to stall. It like I said, it said I answered a question wrong and I couldn't move on to the next page. So I don't know if you're seeing that issue across the board, or I mean, I answered every question on that page and it would not let me
Gotcha.
continue on. So you don't have my survey results at this time.
That's a
But,
problem.
well, that's neither here nor there. But I just want to make sure you don't have a systematic problem with your survey out there, and you get some good feedback from the community.
That survey real quick, we have not, so because we can't measure how many people are listening on the radio, the way they measure that stuff is through surveys like that. And so that survey is really unique. We've never participated in that survey before. But the National Federation of Community Broadcasters collaborated with an organization called Jacobs Media that created that survey. And if we can get that survey filled, that's going to help us understand our ratings and our listenership and how people are doing it.
I tried.
And so I will reach out to the company and tell them to make sure they take a look at that. But yeah, thank you so much. It's a complicated and a kind of a long survey, so I appreciate the time doing that, but it will stand as a benchmark for us to be able to measure listenership.
I think my place is stayed where it stopped moving forward.
Awesome.
So
Well, I'll definitely follow up with you, Adam, on that.
you got it.
Anything else I can answer or questions you might have?
Awesome. Thank you, Brian.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
It's awesome.
And Mayor, there's a resolution there.
Yeah, if
It's the same dollar amount for the same services plus some add-ons that they'll be including with that. So I think it's been a great quality service.
Yeah, and just to note, well, it might feel like a donation. We're actually getting a lot out of it.
There's a lot of services provided.
It's already in the budget.
Yeah, it's already in the budget.
I'm really happy about the emergency piece.
Yeah.
The emergency piece is selling it for me. So
So I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2025-11-05.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, resolution 2025-11-04, ratification of contract to purchase 360 Railroad Avenue. Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael Brack, Fraser Town Manager. Just want to bring this forward. This agenda item ratifies a real estate contract for the purchase of 360 Railroad Avenue here in Fraser, which is located right next to the Amtrak station. We've been working with that property owner over the last couple months, discussing possibility of procuring that space for some future public initiatives. And this ratifies that. The purchase price that we did work with the property owner for that is for $925,000. So what this would do is approving this resolution that's in the packet would ratify that contract and allow us to move forward with the closing that is currently scheduled for January 9th. Mayor, I don't know if you would like to speak about that property a little bit.
Yeah, so we noticed a big need for a transportation center for Fraser, and having the passenger rail increasing a year from now made it even more clear that we needed something like this. Yeah, we'll be able to work with passengers from Amtrak, from the passenger rail, whoever the company is that does that, the Lyft bus service, the Bustang, they all stop right there. And so it really is a need, especially with our weather, to have an indoor space where people can wait for whatever transportation they need. The space, I reached out to the owner quite a while ago, and just to see what her thoughts were on it, and she was open to it, and then things accelerated pretty quickly, and she was looking for an offer. So yeah, so we made her an offer and got it appraised. So we actually gave her over the appraisal value for it, and I think it's a very fair thing, and it sets us up for the future as far as transportation goes.
We're over the appraisal value?
About 25,000, I think, over the appraisal value.
Is that, are we allowed to, I mean, we're a government entity or?
The valuation report was really it's used as a baseline, and just with consulting with you all, and also with Peggy and Brian, and talking about just trying to make a competitive offer. This offer was right on the mark and was accepted with the first.
To keep it from going to market.
Correct.
What are our immediate plans? Are we going to sublease a contractor to operate this for us, or?
So there's a lot to figure out.
We mentioned 3 different operations that are centered around that. It's still pretty vague at this point.
I can just tell you the next steps, assuming a successful closing.
That's what I'm asking.
Assuming a successful closing on January 9th, we'll be having staff evaluating the space, looking at ensuring that all the different transportation options that would be used in this hub, that we are meeting or exceeding any ADA requirements for those, and just looking at just utilization of the space, looking at security for the space, how it can be open, how it can be managed. There's a lot of things to figure out. It's a good challenge, I think, to have. But we do have $15,000 dedicated, that is in the current budget for tonight, dedicated towards just, enhancing that space, refreshing the space, furnishing it, bringing it up to hopefully just ADA compliance if it's not already there, but there's still a lot of work to do. Some things could be opened up more quickly, as long as we do meet those ADA standards. And some things could delay that. So
Do we expect third-party management on this stuff, or is this going to be in-house management? Or
we don't know at this time. I think right now the idea is that this would be managed by the town. And there'd just be one of the facilities that we call for in our budget and we do manage. We do have a facilities manager for the town facilities. And just like any other building, we will be maintaining the security and the entry exit, marketing materials, working as a bit of a visitor center for that space as well, given the traffic that'll be coming
everything's
through there.
complementary, yeah.
And just looking at things that make sense. So there's definitely a lot of work to do regarding programming, long-term planning, and just ways that we can really utilize that space.
Any
Um,
retail?
Could be
Maybe.
an option.
And we're gonna keep the same building. We're not gonna build a different building on the property.
No plans to change it as of now. I mean, we'll change it from what it is to, a more usable transit center, but yeah,
Is
walls
there-
and everything else stays.
What about the yard on the side? That's a big piece of property. Anything with that?
Potential parking. Yeah.
Things to figure out. I don't know.
Have there been conversations for the transition from the existing?
So we do
train
have it.
station?
So I have spoken with the property owner for the current Amtrak station, and he's not really tied one way or the other. So it's ultimately going to be up to Amtrak if they want to move to using that space.
Mhm.
They've talked about using space along the Union Pacific Railroad, so they would have to negotiate with the UPR for constructing any types of facilities within the right of way for the rail for the upper, the UPR. But they seem to be pretty open to our space and was looking forward to the decision made tonight to ratify this agreement and ultimately the closing scheduled for January 9th to start conversations.
And they operate on annual lease at this time?
They have a lease that has provisions for it to be canceled at any time at the current location till 2029, 2028, something along those lines.
Only with Amtrak though, not with the Mustang or the.
It's
any
only with
buses.
Amtrak, and that's part of the issue that we're, I think, trying to address here is that has only been used for Amtrak. That's only been available for Amtrak users and no other users for any other transportation systems.
Do we see the other transportation systems partnering or contracting in, or is this Fraser carries it for the benefit of our residents in our downtown? But is there a financial obligation from those other entities?
It's something we want to explore with Mustang, certainly. That's CDOT.
Yeah.
And as far as the lift goes, unlikely. It's just already expensive. So, yeah.
But will it lift to use that as like a hub or anything?
Yeah.
And so that's additional giving on us for the lift.
It is.
As well as the
Yeah.
disproportional ask that they have. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, all the programmings and use of the space, those, we'll have those conversations with the board.
Mhm.
I want to be able to have staff to get in there and do an initial assessment of meeting the ADA standards and different things that they see to be critical as far as converting it to being available for these different transportation options and being able to move forward with the construction with a conversation with the board regarding how you want to use that space. Currently, maybe in the short term, then long term, that can be, I think, a broader conversation as far as what you want to do in the future.
Well, in the bigger picture, I do see this as a more critical piece than, let's say, a brewery or even the AMS building to the downtown area, and for the reasons already mentioned. So,
Okay.
and this would be a cash purchase.
The cash purchase.
I'm curious, in a bigger picture, I mean, we're financing our public works facility and other things like that are essential to the town. But then we cash purchase on these opportunistic things rather than finance those. I mean, I guess I'm philosophically in a different place where we should be not incurring debt on our needs and this maybe this piece is a little different, but like on a brewery or a dog's paw or whatever the building next to it is, maybe because those, I assume we intend to turn at some point.
Yeah.
So it would make sense to me that we would finance those kind of purchases and carry them for a short term and do less financing on our permanent 100-year structures that would, and that's just a philosophical thing on my part, that a little bit bigger picture than just this one. But I do think this is a critical piece for downtown, more so than any of the others.
And it was a cash offer is obviously looked at as a more beneficial to the seller, and so since we had the cash in the reserves, we thought this was a good use for it, and it made the deal happen. So
Whether we finance it or not, they get a check at the same time.
yeah, there's just less. I mean, really,
I think-
And we
Yeah.
looked at financing options. We looked at, you will have the ability if funding allows for it, but when we have the conversations for things like certificates of participation, we could look at some costs that could be in there, that could go towards this facility. Because those are just public facility dollars that you can use for things like public works facilities, and other major public infrastructure pieces like a transit hub.
Yeah.
But yeah, just looking at the different, options for doing this debt and the debt that we're already pursuing through the Fraser Housing Authority with those bonds and the COPs. I provided, the analysis to the board for that stuff for how our budget would support this. And that was, I think, pretty thoughtful on that. But yeah, this is the method that I would recommend.
any other questions from the board?
No.
Okay,
Now
we
that I
can-
know what it's gonna be, I feel a little better about it. I mean, I was into it, but I just didn't know what we were gonna do with it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I think the overwhelming need is that transportation center. So, okay, we'll take public comment.
Quinn Fraser. There was an actual appraisal done on the building back in June. It came out at 875,000. So to say that it's around 900, commercial properties in the valley have been going down, not up. So I'm guessing since June, it's gone down in value, not up in value. So your bid of 925 is a little above what the appraisal was at. The other issue we have is that we have our budget, and I don't think you guys have looked at Old Town's water and sewer lines and roads over there in a while, because they were supposed to be getting maintained back in, I don't know, 2015 or 16, whenever I was on the board, started there. Anyways, that work still hasn't been done, so you guys still have all that, and you think you have extra money in your budget. You just put out a bunch of bonds to do St. Louis Landing. We don't know if those are going to sell or not. You have Clayton Court that, according to the contractor, the bid's a little high because he said he was at $1.5 million and you're at 5.8. So trying to figure out where that money's actually going. And you had, Michael, told our Michael Kent, who owns the lot next to the Holiday Inn, that you were not allowed to offer above appraised value.
That's not what I said. That is a baseline document for discussions.
Okay, I'll see if I can get the email that he got, because he told me you couldn't offer more than appraised value.
Well, and Michael Kenneth said that these are private discussions between us and his attorney, so I don't know how much, I'm not going to discuss those conversations with you.
Well, this was before the attorney was involved. So,
Right.
yeah.
Now,
Just checking in
there's-
on that. I don't think you guys should be buying more commercial buildings, because we shouldn't have the town competing with locals that have to pay for more full mortgages, pay for maintenance on their own buildings, pay for staff on their own buildings. And we know you guys are going to put something in there besides a train station. And I doubt Ron Anderson's happy that you're going to take his money from him. But if you say he is, I'll have to take your word until I talk to
Feel
Ron.
free to talk to Ron Anderson about that.
Hey, Clark Lipscomb for the record. I think this is great. I think, good job, on getting the property, getting under contract. And, I think it is a need that the community has. I would ask that, you, look hard in your budget, because I think this actually is something that's probably, opportunities come along like this and you take advantage of them, but you kind of need to trim other spots. And I think there's other spots in your budget that frankly, I think should be trimmed that I disagree with. But good job on getting this done. I would ask that, it's not the best looking building. And I don't think it reflects well on Fraser. It's a steel building, pretty simple to modify and clean up. I would ask that as part of the uh, plans for it, that you budget a substantial amount of money to do a cool remodel and make it look cool.
It is the one across the
The
street.
vet building.
The vet building. Yeah, Shauna's vet building.
Yeah.
Well, it's a steel building. I mean, it is a steel frame, steel structure, I think, isn't it, Michael?
I'm not sure if
I mean, she takes care of my dogs and stuff, but I'm pretty sure it's a steel structure. But nonetheless, I mean, I could see that like being morphed into like a cool old style train station, something that has some real character. Because it's a pretty bland, blah building, but it's in a really great location for this purpose. So I mean, that's going to take substantially more money than you're buying it for, obviously. But I think there's an opportunity to really make that great and be a central core asset, particularly when you get off the train or coming through town. Oh, maybe you're not getting off here and you're going to Glenwood to the hot springs or to Grand Junction to go to the winery and Palisades, et cetera. But you go, oh, that place looked pretty cool in Fraser. Maybe I should go back there someday. Right. So, I mean, I just think, make sure you budget wisely on this. And I mean, I would plan on a fairly hefty amount of money to redo the exterior shell, and make it look cool. And then again, I think there's other areas in your budget, which we're going to talk about shortly, that you could trim money out real simply and put it towards something like this and make it happen sooner than later. So thank you.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. That's like my vision exactly. Make it look cool as you're pulling into town.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Fraser's an old town. We need a good looking like classic style.
I think it's.
Yeah, rail station.
You should take priority for other
Yeah,
investments.
true. And as we jump into the budget, I know we're going to be talking about that Clayton Court number. We got clarification on that. So
Okay, that was going to be.
yeah,
question.
that's the big one. Okay, so we need to.
Make a motion?
Do I need to? Oh no, that's not this.
Speak to the other.
Yeah.
Town put them on their own.
So for a ratification, do we just approve it? Just like,
it's just a resolution approving the resolution to, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
2025-11-04.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2025-11-04.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thanks, everybody. That's exciting.
Nothing against the breweries, but.
Okay, so now we need to open a public hearing.
You make a motion?
So let's see. Could I have a motion to open a public hearing? That's all I need to say, right? Oh, it does. Regarding 2026 Town of Fraser and Downtown Development Authority 2026 budgets.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now in public hearing. And we'll talk about 2026 Town of Fraser budget. Lori and Mike.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Michael Brack, again, Fraser Town Manager. We'll see that. There we go, that works well. So I was just gonna walk through the budget message and provide some opportunity for any questions. So in the budget message, it is like the verbal outline of what is reflected in the budget. So just moving through here, I'll just kind of focus on some specific points. Here you do have the general kickoff for the budget message that includes the identified priorities for the town, which include phase 1 of St. Louis Landing, Clayton Court, streetscape and utilities project, the new public works facility design and construction, bike playground and the park at the Lions Ponds, the comprehensive plan update, the Fraser Town Hall ADA bathroom access, which will be in the back of this portion here of the building for Old Schoolhouse Park. The Fraser Winter Park Trail repaving project that is budgeted here, formal sponsorship. Again, these are, I want to preface this too, that, this is obviously a draft budget, and this is based on a series of discussions and workshops with the board, presenting to you what we see as the best budget, based on your discussions and workshops. Anything in here is obviously subject to change. I'm just kind of providing an overview of what's currently in the packet, but you have the full ability and authority, obviously, to make any changes that you see fit, to these items that are budgeted in the budget, which will then be reflected, when we present the budget for final adoption on December 3rd. And that will also, any changes will also be reflected in this budget message. Okay? Does that
So
make,
just to be clear, like we have not approved repaving.
no,
Or
none of this is
the
this,
sponsorship
this
of the
is
film
showing just the details of what's reflected currently in the budget.
Got it.
And any changes that the board would like to make will be reflected in both the budget document itself and the budget message. So I'm just kind of providing just an in-depth overview of what we currently have in the budget by walking you through the budget message. So everything that's outlined in here is currently in the accounted for in this budget. So the Fraser Winter Park Trail repaving project, it really is a rebuild of that paved trail that goes from, it's referred to as the Fraser Winter Park paved trail, that goes along Highway 40, essentially from Wendy's by Grand Park and connecting there by the Foundry when you get to Winter Park. Currently in here, you do have the formal sponsorship for the Winter Park Film Festival. That again is subject to board approval, but this does include $25,000 that was added to the special events line item in the budget, in the general fund. There's also Cousins Ranch open space improvements and maintenance. We will be hosting a workshop here in January or February, looking at revisiting where the Cousins Ranch open space master plan, and to determine what you would like to move forward with. We did budget some maintenance improvements with the focus of the bike park going in, looking at proposing some options to enhance that space around there, specific for directed Fraser River access and enjoyment. We have had one consultation with CPW and Trout Unlimited for that, and when we host that workshop in the future, we will invite them to that again as well. But this would allow for some access to the river areas, and then looking at a maintenance plan for how we can kind of maintain some of these access points, and overall just better maintenance and access to the Lions Pond, that area there, that was discussed at the board retreat earlier this year. And then we do have in here for the initiative support for the Downtown Development Authority. While we do pay a portion of those valuations, approximately $3,500 is accounted for in our budget. That is going towards the DDA, as required by how the DDA functions, where it takes a portion of valuation. So a portion of our property tax revenue is going to the DDA for that, just like any other special district. And then the continued staff time provided by Sarah Tanzright, as she is functioning as the interim executive director for the DDA. Some of the completed projects in here, we did complete the sidewalks for Norgan Road and Eisenhower Drive, improving the walkability here in Old Town Fraser. The town hall improvements, they should be completed here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we're really just waiting for the awning, I think, to come in for the final installation of that. So waiting on that part to come in so we can install it, and then that will be done. What that did address ADA ramp standards, and the snow shed on the roof, adding that gable there in the center to help with any kind of ice block shedding, which we've had issues with in the past here. We are also anticipating the historic church to be completed here very shortly. Hey, you know what? There we go. That looks a little better. How's that, Katie? It's online there. Kind of walking right along. It continues with the different initiatives here. Again, partnering, just showing some of the historic information there for St. Louis Landing. Our financial commitments to St. Louis Landing upon certificates of occupancy provided for those buildings there, which will be the $250,000 a year for 15 years to subsidize those units and keep them affordable. We do have in there the Lyft bus service for the sales tax and some of the background information there, and some of the concerns regarding increased cost with the shortfall of revenues there in that restricted revenue fund. Happy to talk about any of these items independently if you would like as I'm
Hey,
going.
Michael,
Yes, Katie.
somewhere in there we should mention, so we have dedicated that land to grandkids, right? For their use. They have to
We have
finance.
dedicated that land to a childcare facility.
Okay.
We've had a workshop with grandkids. We have not entered into a formalized agreement yet for that space.
I think somewhere that we should mention that, because that's a big gift from the town of Fraser to dedicate that.
Yeah, and I do have that here in the budget somewhere I can find, Katie.
Point number 2 in that last set of bullets.
It is the assumption that we are going to work with grandkids. Is there a possibility somebody else can
In my world, until we have a formal agreement in place.
Yeah,
That's just, I don't want to reflect anything that's not.
but it's a minimal chance that another purveyor of childcare comes in.
I would say a minimal chance. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was an open door, basically.
No,
Okay.
it's no open door yet.
Okay.
We're working to reach an agreement with grandkids first.
You got it. So let's see, I have a couple of questions. It does look like the paved trail, that was something that we kind of pushed for, has been included.
It has been included.
And it's in line item 106370, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like the Clayton Court utilities went down
Yes, and
a couple million.
We'll get to that here shortly.
Okay,
Adam.
I'll let you.
Yeah, but yeah, the bids came in for that, and we have an anticipated awarded bid that will be going out and be coming to the board for approval on December 3rd.
Which then allows us to what?
Clayton Court for the streetscape, the utilities, is through Excel and Mountain Parks.
And then I guess on the film festival, I think there's a little bit of discussion or direction to be had, and I'll let you.
We can,
conversation.
I don't really, I can either go through this and we can have conversation, or we can have conversations you guys want to. It's really up to you.
I almost figured we'd start at the very top and go through the bullet points, just describe what they are and what the changes are. But if you've got a game plan,
and
I'm probably blowing it up right now.
Well, I'm not going to read this whole 18-page document.
No,
I'm really
no,
just
no.
kind of highlighting different parts of it that I think are critical.
Yeah,
just for
I'm
understanding.
thinking like the 10 bullet points
Mm-hmm.
of 2026. Those are really the big items that affect the budget. The others are cost of living increases or CPI, those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. We do have the development agreement with Mountain Affordable Housing, childcare facility operated by grandkids, is being heavily subsidized. So it is right there, Katie. If I can highlight this.
Okay.
Right there.
Right, it mentions okay. It's like
Why I can't highlight things, but
I just don't see where it actually says that we're dedicating the building to them, because it's a zero lease, right? Or $5 lease.
It's
there's
a
the lease.
$1,000 a year lease.
Yeah, I think that's what I'd like to see in there.
Okay, adding that $1,000 a year lease.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can pull the actual name. I don't know what it is offhand, but it's not.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can do that later. That's good. So adding the rent agreement. And again, that's just been an MOU that hasn't been permanent, but that MOU stated $1,000 a year as advised by our legal team, just for maintenance and some different things there.
Thank you.
Um, So yeah, approximately that space, given some of the market rate research we've done on commercial lease space, that's about $29 a square foot. So it's $250,000 a year for that 8,500 square foot space for grandkids. But yeah, we can add the rental piece to that as well that we've talked about so far.
So we're at about 5% of market.
5% of market.
Yeah.
It's
12
it's
grand
pretty
and
close to market.
250.
$250,000 is if you take 250,000 divided by 8,500 square feet, you're at about $29 a square foot.
Yeah, but I guess I was doing easier numbers. 12 grand a year versus 20.
This is $250,000 a year.
That's the market rate, but we're charging, well,
We're charging 1,000 a year.
1,000. I'm sorry.
Yep,
No,
1,000 a year.
Okay.
Now I'm following you.
Yeah, I was thinking it was a month. So
No, just 1,000 a year. So we had that for Sarah based on that MOU.
okay.
Yep. Lift bus service currently funded by the 1% sales tax. Again, showing that is an inadequate approach. We are having forthcoming conversations with the Town of Winter Park about regional transit authorities, such as discussed by Mr. Lipscomb, in addition to a wider initiative for a regional transportation authority that could help offset some of these cost increases that we're seeing now and that we can obviously expect in the future. It's definitely not going to become a cheaper service. I can tell you that. And we're also, Winter Park continues to have conversations internally about bringing that in-house versus contracting that out. So that price does reflect their newly negotiated contract with TransDev, which starts a 5-year contract. So the current, for Fraser's portion, the current 1.489 million for services in Fraser, those will have a 3% increase over the next 4 years, is their current contract.
A 5-year contract, or if they take that in-house, is there an opt-out?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's a good question. I can ask them, but I would not assume that they would have their ducks in a row if they were going to bring it internal, even in 5 years. I think.
You think it's a longer process than that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a good answer.
But good questions. Yeah, good questions. But Winter Park manages that. Yeah, we have conversations, but I'm not directly managing their transit. So obviously more conversation next year regarding that. Wanting to maintain the industrial pretreatment program and zero discharge policy that we currently have in the Fraser Sanitation District. Continuing a collaborative approach with those with the partnering sanitation districts and our local commercial users. I am working to get that on the agenda for maybe January as far as that current subsidy that I think you've talked about before, Katie, for that hauling service that is currently being paid by the ratepayers. Town's water and wastewater collection will remain on pace according to the 2023 adopted 10-year capital improvement plan to replace the aging infrastructure here in town. So that capital improvement plan will continue to be updated as we move along year to year.
How many years into that are we?
That was 2023, so we're are we budgeting for the 3rd year?
Yeah, we're about 2 years, 2.5. Some of the bigger items in there may not be feasible, so we're pulling some forward, pushing some back because of funding.
Next in there, we have continued legal fees. Continued legal fees between the town of Fraser and Cornerstone. to cover those items, expecting likely an appeal in 2026. That final ruling, I think it's projected to come out here second week of December is, I believe, what I sent out to everybody. But we should have the ruling from Judge Holcomb that soon. But just ensuring that we have funds available for legal work tied to that ongoing lawsuit. With the completion of a major renovation of the church, we will be looking at increasing rental rates. Antoinette, you made a comment earlier about some increased interest there.
Yeah, I don't know if the word's gotten out that we're doing work, but I have had some increased new people calling to rent the church. Some more regular reservations through the winter, so that will help us. And I think once everything's complete, we want to look at increasing the rates. We can do that. However, I do look at it as it is a great community asset and it is affordable for people to use. So increasing the rates, maybe modestly, could be good, but I don't think it would be great to increase them very much.
Is the interest more single event or is it reoccurring type thing?
I got the ski meisters, which you guys probably all know. They've contacted me about doing a regular event in there all winter. So
Nice.
hopefully that will work out. And just some other private parties that have never used it before, have never even been in the church. So I think that's great. And I think once the renovations are complete, we'll do a little campaign to get it out and advertise and hopefully get some more people in there to use it.
I think I've been to more events there in the last like 2 years than I ever have in my life.
Yeah, I
The
think so.
quinceaneras,
Yeah.
baptisms and stuff.
Yes.
Do
We'll
we
let
currently
know
market it?
about it.
We don't really market it. I mean, it is on our website,
Yeah.
and I think there's so few places to really hold community events that the word kind of gets around by mouth.
Yeah,
But we hope to get it around even more.
it's cool.
Be a good thing to market on KFFR.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, interest in pursuit of converting town. So again, there is some interest in moving forward with home rule. So we will be pursuing that work next year to discuss bringing that to the ballot initiative on the 2027 ballot initiative, looking at home rule options. A lot of that conversation just revolved around lodging tax dollars that could be available.
You okay, Katie?
And
Yeah, sorry, I'll turn
That's
off my
right.
mic. Sorry.
See, it could be some.
Thank you.
But basically, the direction from the board was at the last retreat was to move forward with that initiative at the ballot on November next year. And this is the last bullet that we just talked about, the acquiring 360 Railroad Avenue in Fraser as a joint transportation hub, and looking at some other opportunities for parking that could support some new downtown development or redevelopment of existing properties. So that's the last bullet there. Any questions about those initiatives? Or even specifically the ones that I went through earlier that do identify the priorities outlined in the budget for Clayton Court, Public Works Facilities, the Lions Ponds, the ADA bathroom access to the rear of this building, the trail repaving project, the formal sponsorship for the Winter Park Film Festival, and some maintenance improvements there to the Lions Ponds.
Could you discuss the changes to the Clayton Court?
Yeah, sure.
A bit, and
Yep.
I mean, I've already ascertained that some of that's been reallocated. Is others just being returned to the general budget and anticipate carryover?
So that line item in the budget has gone down from 5.875 million to the current shown 3.65 million. So the bids did come in for Clayton Court. Some of those dollars so we had $4.4 million that was budgeted for Clayton Court specifically, and now we're budgeting for 3 million. That $4.4 million number did include some land acquisition costs that we were planning with the right-of-way acquisition with that. It did pay for the water line So we've done the water line extension. Paul, you want to kind of recap what we've done thus far?
Gonna say, yes, so the water line has been installed. So that original number was based on the engineer's estimate cost. And going into this year, there's been a lot of changes. We had to split it into 2 phases in order to get water to the development out there. And then there was a lot of pause in looking at heated sidewalks and some delay in trying and make geothermal work, which it's viable, just we have there's not enough room out there. And so it was just looking at that, and then the bids came in late Monday night, so a little bit lower than we were anticipating, so that's good. And so if you look in the budget message here, we talk about it. We got 1.8 budgeted for the streetscape, and then 1.2 for the utility relocates. We do not have a number from Mountain Parks yet, and we do not have a number from Excel, from where the board agreed to run the main infrastructure down the road. So then we also have to run conduit for Comcast. They will go in the same trench with Mountain Parks, but they don't lay conduit, so we have to add conduit for them. So there's just a lot going on out there, and then of course we have the hydrant relocate that we currently ongoing due to Excel's requirements to be on the east side of the road, which is where the hydrants were.
So the 1.2 isn't a hard number. That's an estimate.
That's an
based on-
estimate.
on
Is
the, three
kind of
phase
with
and-
when we
and the gap.
kind of thinking
Yeah.
about how we buried the line through Lions Ponds, what that cost versus what this is,
Mhm.
single phase versus 3-phase, transformers, all those things that we have to deal with. So, right now the plan is we're going to run everything down Clayton Court. And it seems like the two developers at the south end aren't really ready for any. So really don't know what those connections are going to be. They're going to have to make those connections after we do, unless they figure it out before May. So currently the plan is Excel is probably going to be there in May.
That was my next question.
In April, so back half of April, they always try to finish up what they didn't get to this year. And then we are on the front end of 2026 projects. So they think they'll be there early part of May to run the I think it's a 4-inch gas line all the way down. And then Mountain Parks is still doing their design. So I don't have any numbers from them.
So when do we anticipate hard numbers? Pre-May.
Pre-May, yeah, it's on their time frame that both of their engineering departments have it or coming up with a design.
Okay.
So I'd say at this point we have the infrastructure has been run from kind of right there at the backside of Kozlig down to the new bakery in Strome. And then the stubs have been run to the art center for our grant, and then kind of everything is stopped right there, and then we have to run it all the way down.
So the other items that are called out there in the budget, which are noted right next to it. So 1.8, that includes a 15% contingency that we put in there for Clayton Court. And then 1.2, which will get tighter numbers once we actually get costs from Excel and Mountain Parks Electric. The other items budgeted in there for the total 3.65 million is $150,000 for the public works design. That was approved by the board at the last meeting, and the Fraser Winter Park paved trail rebuild is budgeted for 500,000. We believe that project is likely to come in around 700,000. We'll be pursuing some grant opportunities to hopefully make up that difference. So looking forward to that. But those really do cover, I think, the major initiatives. I'll walk through the rest of the budget message, but kind of highlight a few different other sections here, but want to keep it open. Was there any consensus about Fraser Film Festival or anything else that we have bulletized there in the budget message?
Well, I think on the Fraser Film Festival, we discussed that a little bit yesterday. And it seemed that they're not a formal entity, and so there's 2 guys asking for $25,000, and as Lori said, we'll get called out on that in an audit. So I guess I'd like you to
Yeah, and
discuss that situation a little
So
further
yeah.
and that we need to put some conditions on this.
No, absolutely. So yes, we did talk to the Grant Foundation yesterday. And Lori and I both have a very good understanding of what needs to take place before that funding is provided. Essentially, they need to complete the formation of a 501c3 entity to be able to receive funds and revenues that Grant Foundation currently has from last year. And then additionally, the last thing that we want to require is that they were awarded $5,000 in funds through the donor advised funds last year, and just requiring them to submit the report on how that $5,000 funds was spent. That is, they did not apply for donor advised funds this year, but if they were to try to apply, one of the requirements that we have for this program for entities that are applying every year is they have to submit their annual report on how those funds were used. So those are really the two main sticking points, the conditions. And once they establish a 501c3, they'll obviously have to establish a bank account and those different things. But providing the evidence of that, being able to review that on the state LLC website, and then just having that final report on how those funds were used and were granted to them last year. Those are really the two primary conditions of approval for those funds.
And how about our logo on any of the published materials? I think that got missed last year.
I'm always for that.
Yeah, I think that should be a mandate. Our logo is on all their published materials.
Yeah, agreed.
Definitely. Can we do a reimbursement? 25,000? So they submit receipts and we approve.
We could look at that route.
That makes their reporting a lot easier because it's done. They hand in a receipt.
And I'm sorry and the last thing is obviously with a $25,000 grant request requiring a financial report for how those funds are spent. So we could do it retroactively, like you're saying, or we could just require a report that needs to come in for how those funds were spent, which again, I guess would be more of a retroactive reimbursement.
Right.
And I'm also wondering if a 500% increase is appropriate in funding. We were at 5,000 last year to jump to 25.
Hey, Adam, you need to talk in your microphone. I can't get half of what you're saying.
I guess I was questioning the amount of increase. It's a 500% increase. I just don't, I didn't know if there should be any discussion on the appropriateness of that. Yeah, they didn't apply for donor advised funds this year. I don't believe the Grand Foundation can support them further until they're a formalized entity. And so it seems to be falling on the town, and there's conditions to be met. So I don't know if discussion is needed on the dollar amount. I mean, I'm supportive of the event, but I don't know that going from 5,000 to 25,000 is necessarily appropriate.
That's a big step.
And that request was made through a couple of different presentations they did get to the board, trying to talk about the marketability, increasing their marketing campaign for that. But I could have them send you guys all an email if you'd like to and talk about that a little bit more. And also the concept of a reimbursable 25,000.
No, I saw their presentations. I just didn't know that we should be funding it fully just because they asked.
Yeah.
So I think the information's out there and we're educated on it, but it's a 500%. And are we going to see a 500% increase on the event? It should be more incremental in my mind.
That is the question in my mind is, yes, they're trying to grow it, but they're not going to grow it 500% in a year. They've been running on an absolute shoestring to this point. So maybe we base it off of like we've, been giving them 10 instead of 5, and maybe we double it, but it's worth discussing for sure.
And if they're losing other funding partners because of their non-actions, I guess,
right.
are we picking up that slack?
True.
Yeah, so I'll follow up with
And I
them.
would have gone a little further than 10.
I don't.
I was just saying, pretend we were operating on 10, double that.
So
You know,
yeah, this is
another
just up for whatever you guys want to do, obviously. So if there's a consensus with you right now on what you want to move forward with to show in the December 3rd budget, we can still make changes on December 3rd.
I'd say 20,000.
We can at least provide those for those conditions to be met before any types of funding.
That's a must. That's a have.
20, they get 20, that's
Yeah.
same with the radio.
Katie Souls online, if you didn't hear it, said she's okay with 20. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a question of, do we think it's an economic driver? Do we want to see it continue? These guys aren't gonna keep doing this on a tiny, tiny budget forever.
Well, and that's part of the push of making them a 501c3. That opens more doors and more avenues, and hopefully they don't have to turn away from funding partners that are not eligible anymore, or they're not eligible for.
Why are they not a 501(c)(3) yet?
The process, it takes a while to get it done, and you need to have an attorney help you, and it can be kind of expensive.
My understanding is they've had the intent to do it. They intend to work with Megalendine to ensure that they set up that correctly, but that has not happened yet. So
And
she's
willing to.
They're one of the lead sponsors.
They're budgeting 25 right now with conditions, is what Nick has told me.
Well, we have conditions too. They're not meeting them, so 0 at this point. I mean, the conditions are they come to us with what they're doing with it, and they have not, right?
Well, we can assign any conditions we want on the money. Like I would say, they have to submit receipts if they want their money back.
And for us to fund them, our auditor wants them to be legitimate.
Right.
We can't just write a check.
Correct.
Agreed.
I think the Grant Foundation said they have, give or take, $20,000 in the account that they're holding for them, but they can't give it to them because they're not a legitimate.
No, how much generated for Fraser?
they have some information, and I can go back and send out those packet materials. But they have 2 different presentations that they gave.
There's some testimonials.
I would venture to guess the volleyball tournament at the ball field generated.
So
we didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
I knew about it because the people who threw the event came into the bar and were like, "Oh, you didn't know about it? We would have loved to throw our award ceremony here." And da da da. And I'm like, "Well, next year." So I got their number, but I didn't even know anything about the volleyball tournament until it was over.
I mean,
Hey, Brian.
They also did request
25,000 is a partnership.
Yeah.
Brian,
Yeah.
you're honorable mayor, Mr.
Yes.
You have one other thing that was, for me, I felt like they would have had a lot more of a local presence if they had been able to publish a poster. Not a huge one, but the kind of standard size that we're seeing in the post office, because locals did not know about it. And when I talked with them about it, a big part was they didn't have the money to do it, and they, are all about social media. But to really make it successful and get the people there, I think that there's a lot of locals that would have gone and participated.
Are you talking about the
but they
volleyball
didn't know anything
tournament?
about it.
Are you talking about
So-
volleyball or movies?
I'm talking about movies, not volleyball. I'm talking back to our funding for
Okay.
the film festival.
I'm correct.
Yeah.
And personally, just because I mean, it made me kind of crazy. It happens. Anyway, I'd almost like to see that in one of our conditions, that we pay for the production of some posters.
Some marketing.
Yeah. Anyway,
And include the Fraser logo on it.
yeah,
Maybe one of the
absolutely.
conditions would be they have to spend $5,000 on marketing to get people to come to Fraser for this event.
I mean, the whole thing is in Fraser, even though it's called Winter Park Film Festival. Everything but the award ceremony at Sunspot, I think.
Says the winner
Yeah.
with a shadow mark of Fraser.
I don't know.
The Winter Park Film Festival in Fraser, Colorado. I'm okay with 20.
I think Grand
those
Park does that
conditions.
too. Advertises as Winter Park.
Oh, yeah, we have our stuff in Fraser
Yeah,
too. We
and
do both.
I'm just,
I mean,
you know, I'm having fun. So.
we kind of just are Grand Park anymore. I mean, I'm like stuck in the middle of two, you know, like, I don't know how
You
to
could have a
describe
nice.
Oh,
it.
you're in Fraser.
But I mean, if they want to compete with the Ski Town, film festival,
Yeah.
they kind of have to use.
No,
Now's the
I
discussion.
understand the logic to why.
Yeah.
That was my fun. You know, I think it's worth supporting. I think it definitely needs some conditions. The aforementioned are absolutes. Market, if we want to steer how those are spent, I think that could happen.
So
Why not take it out of your economic development funding line item in your budget? And
for the like the business enhancement grant,
there's something in here for economic incentives or something like that that I'd like
those
to.
are the dedicated economic incentive payments that we have to make to those.
Oh, you're having to make those, okay. Got it.
I think it's in special events right now. Right?
It is that,
yeah.
it's noted in this too. I think I said that.
Yeah.
But it's in that special events that comes under, I think, the general fund and yeah.
1041, 864.
So the conditions I have so far, 20,000 is the consensus, I think. We will require them to ensure they establish a 501c3, provide the 2024 report for how those funds that were given to that event were used. Future report for, and maybe just, if it is reimbursable, they just provide the report before it's reimbursed. So provide a report of how the funds were used before it's reimbursed, and add the Fraser logo to advertising. If you want to earmark some of that for marketing, could, just whatever you want.
Sure.
I'm sure they have marketing dollars. It's all fungible. It's just
right.
Yeah.
I mean, we have testimonials that it benefits some of our businesses. Let's make it benefit all of them.
Sounds good. So what, 5K of the 20K
Yeah.
specific to marketing?
Yeah, 25% or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Hard copy marketing included.
Yeah, not all social media. Yeah. Hard copy. I agree.
Right.
Because they are the producers of social.
So Michael, I just question, if we're gonna put the conditions on there, would we want to create some sort of contract or agreement with them? To approve those funds?
Yep.
And bring that back for December 3rd?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I've always seen the agreement would go with this. If it's appropriated, that agreement can come back to the board in the future before those funds are given. I don't think we're gonna be able to finalize an agreement with these guys between now and December 3rd. It's just appropriating those funds that could be available based on the conditions of the agreement.
Right. Well, and we want them to have a 501c3 before we get a contract together anyway.
And that agreement can provision
I think
for
that
all the
makes
different things
sense
you
in the
guys are asking.
process, or they
Yeah. Step on it.
get going.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Anything more on the film festival? Public or otherwise? Okay.
Okay, I'll keep moving along. I know it's 8:23 right now, so I want to kind of keep her moving. So currently we have one vacancy at the wastewater plant. Otherwise, we retained all staff, and that is because of the retirement of Joe Fuqua at the wastewater plant. So we have a good candidate that we're hoping to fill that with here soon. Based on COLA and impacts for healthcare coverage is going up 13 to 14%. So between COLA and increases to help offset that, we're looking at a total increase of 4.3% increase for salaries for town staff. Below that, you have the IGAs between the public safety entities, which is the police department and code enforcement, the building department, public transit, water storage agreement that we have, and Grand Beginnings agreement, which is just a $4,500 provision. That can be folded into, if the board does maintain the line item for childcare, that agreement could essentially go away if you would like to, and just keep that a little more clean moving forward. All the fund reserve targets have been hit. We have met all the reserve targets for each fund, between all these various funds that are shown here. And then it just kind of talks about the methodology that we use for our how we do our budget, the basis of accounting and the budgetary process, a verbal explanation of what each of the funds are. And then it talks more specifically about the government funds, the general fund, and these various items that are shown in the budget for general funds, sales tax dollars, property tax dollars, various sources of revenue. And some of those do call out what the 2024 audited actuals were and how we did come up with some of these numbers for those projections. And then the expenditures. So it really breaks down all the different expenditures for each of the funds. But in the general fund, the other ones I would call out, Fraser Winter Park Police Department, they are budgeting $1.467 million, which is a 13% increase from the 2025 budget due to cost of living salary increases and the additional second code enforcement officer there. St. Louis Landing is called out for the 2,575, going towards planned investment fees, the construction of the road, sidewalks, and all the other infrastructure related to that road, and a new bus stop, curb and gutter, and related dirt work. Clayton Court and the utilities project, again, budget for $3 million, and we've talked about this. Fraser Housing Authority anticipating, we've got a budget for 190,000 for the bedroom. We received 190,000 in revenues expected for 2025. 230,000 is expected with a bedroom fee. So on October 1st of this year, we did upgrade to the final last year for the cost of $350 per bedroom for STRs. And that is in addition to the $150 registration fee for each short-term rental each year. We had the legal fees broken out there at $425. It's a little lower than the 2025 budget. And our actuals, I think, are pretty low for legal fees this year because of the delayed ruling from Judge Hoke, which we're expecting here in the next few weeks. Other professional services for the maintenance and landscaping improvements that we've talked about for the Lions Ponds, and that also includes $75,000 earmarked for the wayfinding project, and we didn't need about that today. With the town of Winter Park, looking at doing all the design work for specs, engineering, and everything, locations of various types of signage that we'll use on Highway 40 and on the Fraser River Trail. And we'll have a formal update once we have a joint meeting here, hopefully Q1 or Q2 with their new town manager, John Peacock. Facility improvements, I spoke about those already back at the town hall here for that ADA access to the bathrooms. Street projects, $500,000, which will include concrete and asphalt work planned for Discovery Lane, Cousins Way, and Market Street, in addition to some other areas of town as funds allow and as bids come in. New Transit Center, again, I did budget $15,000 just initially to kind of get our hands in that a little bit and do some general improvements for short-term use if that's what the board wants to do. But we will discuss that more following closing. Everything else I think we've talked about. Looking at 5,000 to clean up some of the areas around the HTA and Elk Creek that comes in by there. Mountain Man Park, just looking to reconstruct one of the roofs there for the historic buildings, improve the lighting. We're still trying to move that along. And as requested, there are some items here for economic development. So we are talking about the various funds that we have for economic development, which includes the Business Economic Incentives Program, the business enhancement program, the awards that were provided this year for the business enhancement grant program, and the Fraser donor advised funds below that. And those are the awards that went out this year for those nonprofits. I will have those donor advised funds presents to the board for approval and discussion at the next town board meeting on December 3rd. Talked about revenues for the restricted revenue fund, which we're all very familiar with. 16% increase over 2025 for transit services. And then just in detail about the debt service fund, talking about how those different line items do work for the bond issuance for St. Louis Landing and for COPs for the public works facilities. Happy to answer any questions there. And then just the various funds, revenues, expenditures that are planned for these different funds. For the water fund, water rights diversion development, Mary's Pond embankment. There's a leak in Mary's Pond that we're working to rectify, and the anticipated cost for that is just kind of earmarked for $200,000. Other capital projects include the furry critters, water line looping for phase 1, new wells in Fraser, leak detection repairs, and then the new public works facility design for 150. Other capital purchase include new water meters as they continue changing out the old meters for the Metron smart meters. Wastewater fund showing the expected revenues and expenditures there. Primary things funded for is the engineering fees, system repair and maintenance for jetting video for the collection system. Capital projects includes some I&I inflow and infiltration repair work in Ptarmigan. We'll be doing the $200,000 for more chemical grouting for the older sewer lines to help extend their useful life until they're able to be replaced. And then again from the wastewater fund, 150 for new public works facilities design. Plan increases, we do have 515,000 for the new filter under drains, which again is anticipated for 100% reimbursement through the contractor that is in notice of default. This kind of outlines the other fiduciary funds for the JFFF, which we are fiduciary for, and capital improvements related to the plant specifically, and the different funds within the plant joint facilities fund. So treatment plan update, general, we just got the draft permit this week. We'll be fine. That'll be coming more finite here in the next several weeks here. But replacing the UV system, which was the last part of the treatment plants, the treatment process at the plant. If you recall your last hopeful tour to the plant, it's just an ultraviolet cleaning required by the state. That's being replaced because that has been falling apart.
On those wastewater treatment plant expenditures, we are a pro rata share of the total cost.
Yes, and it's based on the number of residential equivalent units, the EQRs, that are allocated, but also in use. So we still have about 70% of our EQRs that have been allocated available for new development. Winter Park is about 91%. Part of these improvements that we're looking at is to bring the plant up to code, but also look at options for expanding the plant now that we have the discharge permit requirements draft finally in hand, because you can't look at adding capacity unless you know all the different requirements are being met.
Yeah, and for instance, like the drain replacements is 515. That's about 25% of the total cost because that's our pro rata share.
Right.
Or, give or take, I think we're 28 or something.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's 20.
And I'm more asking just for the public to understand that we're just a portion of those expenses.
Yep, and we have very healthy funds for the wastewater. If we did see the ability to start a larger project, then we would bring that forward to the boards for approval. So just kind of providing a summary of where we're at. And looking to push forward these various initiatives and move forward with these town priorities as identified by the board. Any questions for that budget message? Otherwise, I'll pass it to Lori.
Budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a budget message is what we're on right now.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
So just a couple of things that on just the initiatives that you covered. And it relates to the budget. On daycare, I think in your MOU, it should be required to be open 6 days a week. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
I think Fraser should have a seat on their board. You're giving them a lot of money. And I'm concerned about the top heavy nature of that and the low pay of the teachers. I think the teachers should be paid more. And I think there needs to be a stronger board overseeing that, particularly with what y'all are contributing, because you're giving them 250 grand in free rent. And then there's 100 grand in cash on item 1041, 866.
Mhm.
So that's 350 that you're giving to grandkids. And then you're giving 250 to SLL with St. Louis Landing, right? Which I realize that's your housing thing. But I mean, in total, that project alone right now, if you keep up with those subsidies annually, that's $600,000 a year in subsidies out of our taxpayer money. And I don't know that that is
I like
very,
6 days a week. That's pretty.
Yeah,
very justified.
good idea.
Yeah.
We did talk about, we had a meeting earlier today where we talked about the board and the fact that it's all educators that are on the board currently. And so
And they have
no
a
one
huge,
with a business.
they have a huge wait list. Okay.
I think that's reflected in the tuition discussion as well. I mean, the design
Exactly.
Commissioner said the tuition,
Yep.
Megan Ledeen said the tuition. I think those outside of that education realm are open to the idea of modifying the tuition model
Mhm.
where the interior is pretty
Yeah.
hard fast against it.
Adamantly against
They
it.
they
yeah.
need a business person in there making some recommendations to them, in my
Absolutely.
opinion. And I think having a board seat, y'all have perfect opportunity to ask for that.
The more conversations I have, the
Right.
more commonalities I hear on that front.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, go.
On St. Louis Landing, I know you didn't cover that a lot, Michael, but you did mention Matt, et cetera, and just a couple of things. I see in this budget under the town board, there's like 3.5 million to St. Louis Landing. Then under the Fraser Housing Authority, there's another, I think, 4.5 million. And we've talked about this before. In fact, we talked last year, the budget with Lori, about segregating the St. Louis Landing project so it's clear, because they basically were coding all of the money, the Fraser Housing Authority, not the St. Louis Landing project. And that didn't happen. And here again, I'm looking at this and I'm sitting here as a citizen going, how much money does the town of Fraser have invested in this project today? And it's not clear. Do any of y'all know?
So once you subtract what we've been awarded for grants, the development agreement is 2.9 million for that contribution plus this 15-year subsidy for the 250,000 a year. So when you look at the 2026 budget and you look at the grant line items that come in, it nearly covers entirely that line item for St. Louis Landing.
Okay, so you're basically having the offset of the grant revenue up above, offsetting your 4.5 going out to the Fraser Housing Authority, roughly. Is that
4.5?
Yeah, under the Fraser Housing Authority, I think there's 4.5 million for St. Louis Landing, and then there's.
So the project will be managed through the housing authority.
I understand.
Yeah.
They own it, don't they?
They do own it. Yeah. So they provide the oversight to the project unless it's ever handed off to a third party for management there.
Well, I understand. And so I think the Fraser Housing Authority in here shows getting 4.5 million from the town. And then under the town board category, there's another 3.5 that's already been given. And my core question is, okay, net of grants, how much money today is invested in this project by the town?
the total allowed is 2.9.
Okay, but
So when we're all said and done and we've have all the grant reimbursements, we will arrive at that 2.9.
okay, okay. I think right now you're over that.
Because of the
We're over that, but
Okay.
these grant requests typically are 2 quarters behind. And these, if you look at these last 2 quarters, we've had a lot of construction costs there.
Okay.
But essentially,
That's-
once we settle up and all these different things, and we go to consider the certificate of occupancy, we will get that we will arrive at that 2.9 number.
Okay. Clayton Court, we talked about the last meeting. It was 5.85 million. We made a core request to the town of just I asked you to send it to me and you didn't. And so we made a core request to the town for that 5.85. We got a response that there was no breakdown of that 5.85. And there was nothing to give us
So
from the clerk.
4.4.
What's that?
4.4 is for the streetscape, and then another 1.2 was for the utilities for the gas main and the three-phase power.
But man, how long is Clayton Court? How many lineal feet?
I don't know, Clark.
I mean, ballpark it.
I'm not going to ballpark.
Okay.
It's probably way off.
I'm just getting at, guys,
Yeah.
first of all, even $3 million on Clayton Court. I get the 1.2 in utilities with the electric and the gas and understand I deal with that too. I think that's still very high. But I'm also getting some high prices from the electric company in particular, who is a co-op, and we are all members. So you got to sit there and wonder, are they actually passing all this stuff through at cost? Because I know what things cost, and that's definitely questionable today with their kind of new structure. But
And we
but
did get multiple
regardless,
bids for that project, which will be shown at the next meeting here for approval.
okay. But you have streetscape. I mean, is there a design of the streetscape, what it's going to look
Yes.
like that got bid out?
Yeah, we're at 95% plans or 100% plans for.
Okay.
100%
And what happened with the fire? Nobody asked at the last meeting. Y'all approved an $81,000 fire hydrant relocate that I think were just put in by phase this year,
We got
right?
blue
Brand new
first,
fire
yeah.
hydrants, and
Yep.
we have Conroy for $81,000 moving them.
So, Paul, you want to explain why
Like,
we're moving the fire hydrant?
Excel, they had to be moved to accommodate Excel.
Of course.
So the original design, the town was not installing the gas and electric infrastructure. When we broke it up to accommodate the development, the board then decided to pay for the electric and gas, and in coordination with Mount Parks and Excel. The only place that Excel would place their gas line was on the east side, which is where those brand new hydrants went in. And in order to get the clearance, we had to move them to the west side, mid-block, and then around to Clayton Avenue on the south side.
And that was on consent agenda.
Was that on consent last time? I think it was.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was on the consent agenda at the last meeting. I was just curious what happened. I mean, so did Merrick mess that up? I mean, I look at that and go, I guess it's a good thing that Garrett makes us get all the utility approvals in advance of us actually installing stuff, because I've never had to relocate brand
Maybe
new
he's
hydrants.
looking out for you. I mean, that's
Hey,
we,
looking
we
out for me, Garrett.
Paul, how long did you negotiate with Excel on these different
We
things?
spent, I don't know, probably 4 months fighting Excel, as you and I have discussed.
I'm dealing with them right now.
And so
Yeah.
originally, again, the original deep wet infrastructure was prior to the town agreeing to install utilities. So that job was completed in the spring. And then when negotiations came with Excel on where they needed their line prior to putting out the final streetscape after right-of-way acquisition, we had to move the gas line.
We had talked to their attorneys. I mean, it's just been
Oh,
a
I'm
process.
dealing with it right now. I mean, they're
Yeah.
asking for stuff that's not in their tariff, not in their agreements, and that the higher isn't being directed by the higher ups, and really has no rationale. And so we're head to head with them, dealing with exactly this issue that Paul dealt with, and it's kind of nonsensical. They're actually one of the simplest utilities in the
Yeah.
shallowest depth. And they're asking for stuff that they're not entitled to. So, we can do without it and do propane tanks. I mean, I don't have to have gas. So,
I don't think our code allows for propane tanks.
yeah, it does. And they're all buried. We bury them. Yeah, sure. You would know where mine are at my house. I have propane tanks. They're buried. Same thing as steamboat. They're buried. I've done that a lot. So,
Okay.
or we go full electric. What the heck? I mean, join the club. Right. They're charging us for it. So anyway, concrete in the village. You mentioned concrete. I just want to make sure we understood this was going to get done this year, and I think the concrete budget was too short. It's not just Market Street. I just want to clarify that. Paul and I walked it. We walked it last year with Brad.
Market Street,
Plus, yeah.
everything.
Yeah, because I mean, there's, stuff that's by the brand new hospital that we had just put in and it got, anyway, there's more than, I just want to be clear. You said Market Street. I think of that as just one block and there's a lot more than that. There's
Yeah.
13, 14-year-old curbs now that are, been pretty beat up by the
So
town.
Paul's walked it with you, right, Clark?
Yeah.
You
yeah.
guys have an agreement what we're gonna do.
Well, we had it for this year, but it didn't
Okay.
happen because y'all did the sidewalks in town and the money. So I just want to make sure you
We'll
have
get it done next year.
enough in that line item to actually effectuate it and just get it done. I think somebody did like 50 feet of one sidewalk or one curb this year. So any case, yeah, as long as it's in there, we'll be happy. And we're looking at finishing up those buildings and doing a lot of other improvements in that area. And we can't be faced with kind of, poor looking rights of ways. On this sheet, and I didn't hear you touch on it in your thing, but it looks like the 2025 revenues are lower than 2024. Is that accurate? Am I reading this spreadsheet correctly?
2024 is audited, which includes like the sales tax for November and December, which we get a huge chunk of sales tax come in for that time. So the audited financials will be really the telling statement, Clark, and
Okay.
we should have those available in,
I mean, do you
May.
think you're going to be equal to last year or?
I mean, what Lori's been showing on the treasurer's report, it just looks like that we're right on pace and I think slightly above last year, Lori. But again, the audit's really going to be telling the true tale there again, because when we show sales tax numbers for a month, it's the previous month's collection of the previous month's sales tax.
Okay. Would it be possible to get this spreadsheet in Excel with the formulas? Is that something that we could get?
Maybe it's a working document. So
I mean,
I'm
I
happy if you
understand
send me
that, but-
questions, Clark. If you email me what questions you have.
Well, I mean, I can sit here with my calculator or my numbers, but I'm way better. You just stick me on a spreadsheet and, go. And I mean, we similarly asked for the pro forma for the housing authority. And what we got was an Excel numbers only summary sheet with all sheets removed, no unit matrix, no details, no nothing. And then we were told the formulas were proprietary or something. But yet we have a firm that's being paid by the town, employed by the town. They don't have proprietary stuff. I can get the mad argument of, oh, I have proprietary. I don't believe they do, but I mean, formulas are formulas, but regardless, there was the lady that was here that was doing she works for you all, that's taking the mad stuff and making sure it all works. I mean, could we get that data so we can kind of analyze?
We're consulting with our attorneys. We have things provisioned in the agreement for proprietary information. I think this is getting off topic for
In the
budget
agreement with
resolution.
MAD though, but this is all budget related, Michael. I'm trying to help analyze the budget and make sure that our town is being fiscally responsible.
And
you
that's
guys
what we're
just
paying
approved-
Hilltop Securities for, who's
You
a
guys just
fiduciary. for the
Okay,
town.
but that's my point. She's got to have spreadsheets that aren't MAD's proprietary spreadsheets and y'all are paying them for them. Okay, with our taxpayer money, that is public record. So can we not get her spreadsheets? That would be good. That's fine.
We're
Right?
gonna
I
talk
mean,
to our attorneys. We're not gonna give anything that's proprietary information, Clark. I don't know what the final
Michael,
result of that is.
you're spending the most money that's ever been spent in the town of Fraser, this board. Okay, and no board members ask questions. You never ask questions. And it's concerning that you have a $45 million bond issuance approved. By the way, the housing authority is like, where was that published? In their meeting, I didn't see an agenda on the housing authority meeting, but regardless, you got a $33.5 million COP for a public works facility. And then you've got all this other stuff. You were spending a lot of money. No one's asking questions. And I'm guessing none of y'all have gotten spreadsheets or actually sat through and gone through these numbers. It's like 110% blind trust to your manager. Okay. Great if y'all have that much confidence, but as a taxpayer, I think it's fair to say, can we get some data and some answers? Like if you've got a budget line item 5875, it's a big red flag when the town clerk gets back to a core request and says, sorry, we don't have any data on what's in that 5875. When was it just a random number picked out of the blue sky? What is it? Come on. I mean, guys, you're better than this. I mean, come on. I mean, really? I know you don't run your business this way. I'm just
I don't think
asking
you're
for
wrong, Clark.
fiscal responsibility, and I don't see it in your budget outline that you just went through. And I'm just asking some simple
I
questions.
talked about the items that it is funding. Yeah. All the infrastructure that's going in, the road, everything else.
All right, that's all.
Happy to answer any questions. Just
Thank you.
shoot me an email, Clark, if you got further questions about the budget. I'm happy to respond to you.
Did you, when you were going through the list, Parnell Quinn again, when you were going through the list, I thought you said that you were going to increase the salaries of the employees of Fraser in the town at 13%?
No, 4.3%.
Okay, thank you.
We have
insurance went up.
the insurance went up 13 to 15%.
Okay, that's what I heard. Thanks. I just want to clarify.
Is that a Colorado thing, like public employee insurance package?
Yeah, it's CBT, it's UMR. There's a lot of, I've been seeing a lot of the different towns talking about these increases we're having with healthcare. It's just kind of nuts.
Does the town cover 100%, 70%?
100% for the employee, and then I think 50% for their families.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's free for that, but it's obviously expensive to charge. So
Yeah.
those
It's a, like relative to your salaries, it's 25% of your salaries. I mean, we just changed HR, and I'm just wondering, part of it was driven by healthcare. I'm just wondering if there's better options.
we're constantly evaluating better options for the scale of employees that we have and the benefits we try to provide. It's a constant reevaluation process, but we typically, I know Lori does a lot of work on that, but we keep for next year, we've seen that where we're at is it's a good plan for government agencies. You will see different things that are available for private businesses that are different than for local governments. So this is probably the most used healthcare program throughout the state for municipalities.
Yeah, it's a big expense per employee.
It is.
Bigger than private business insurance, which you would think it would be the reverse.
Right. We would say, yeah. Pending any further questions on the budget message, I'll hand it to Lori just to provide a quick overview of the budget for the Excel portion there.
Go ahead, Lori.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Stop it. Okay, yeah, I'm done. It's looks different on my screen. Yeah, I tend to be mildly conservative when budgeting your revenues. I'd rather have it come in a little higher than being overly optimistic. That way we look like we're trying to be responsible with what we're working with. So nothing up here in the revenues changed. Basically the work that we've been doing. The new revenues should be catching up. As I mentioned, we've made a round of grant reimbursement requests. And after getting through some issues that DOLA had, because the grants have to go through their auditors, I was able to get Q2 grants funded, and now we're trying to get Q3. So hopefully well, not hopefully, the grant funds will start rolling in that will offset the St. Louis Landing expenditures, also the expenditures for the public works development, planning development portion. We did some work on getting we've got the business enhancement program ready to go. We have the KFFR Grand Foundation. Those are all accounted for. Are there any questions under the town board section? The 1041, the ones that start with 1041, that's the town board expenditures? Okay, I'll keep going. Down under administration, we didn't do a lot of changes. In the, the upper section here, we've added a line item. Oh no, it was down further. We do have the 208 Eisenhower, the recently purchased. The newly purchased is going down under Public Works. We've got, we've seen the reductions in 107 Eisenhower because we've got the renovations completed. We're getting, and the town hall renovations are getting completed, so a lot of those got reduced. Capital projects, right here in 1045-730, that's where we are anticipating, that's for the exterior bathrooms. And all the notes have all been updated to reflect what we went through. When the board requested, we cleaned up capital projects. We had some that were kind of being intermixed because of, just prior ways that other finance directors had carried them in the past. But now down in capital projects, 1060-730, we worked to clean that up. Sorry, I have to move the screen's doing something weird here. I can't get it out of the way. There it goes. It was driving me crazy doing something lengthwise. So now we have this Clayton Court streetscape, utilities. Oh, sorry, that went way too far. The Clayton Court streetscapes and the utilities are at $3 million. The public works facility design is $150,000, and the paved trail rebuild is being carried at $500,000 under the 1060-730. Those were in a different area, and it just was not a good look. So all of the notes match. Professional services is Kumar soil testing and surveying, and then the engineering fees. So any questions in there? Okay. The transfers, you will see in the updated actuals, since the ordinance number 526S/2025, this was the bridge loan that the board approved to the Fraser Housing Authorities. I am going to, I'm in the process of catching all of these entries in Cassell so that when the auditors see this, they will know that this occurred this year. So the $5.4 million is an actual, and then that is also the year-end estimate because those funds have been moved down to as a transfer into the Fraser Housing Authority. This will clean up and show the state not only when they see the audit, because when we get audited as the town of Fraser, the state also takes a look at the budget that goes with that audit. So I'm showing them the actual expenditure going to the Fraser Housing Authority. And at this time, the general fund revenue expenditure over revenue, this red number not too long ago was over 3 million. We had been cleaning up and paring down a lot of the projects per the board's request. And so we've reduced that. And we will be working on all of those other funding options, and depending on how things go, potentially more grants, as Michael mentioned, to help get the paving for the bike trail, the paved bike trail on Highway 40. There's the HTA, the Headwater Trails lease and annual agreement. We have some trail expenditure capital going on possibly. So restricted revenue, again, with the bus, that is our issue this year because the bus did increase by 16%. And hopefully with the help from the county and other sources, we'll be able to get that figured out.
Well, would you guys like to take a pause right now and look at the transit and
Oh,
verify what
transit?
approach you guys would like to use for that? Right now, we have the full budgeted costs to maintain these services. And then in the spring, we'll be having a lot of conversations regarding various financing methods and then look to present options to the board before they renew their contract in July with TransDev regarding service in Fraser. But just want to open up for discussion to see if you guys are supportive of maintaining that 1.489 or if you want to look at a different appropriation for next year.
I do think it's disproportionate to our ridership. And my concern was that mostly for the Fraser River Trail or the Highway Side Trail, that seemed to be the dollar amount we would need for 50% match for grants and that kind of stuff. But it seems like that's now out of the capital improvements. This isn't sustainable. So something's got to be. We've got to start facing that fact.
Yeah.
And I mean, the county commissioner said it. We're in the same boat. And to just spend all of our reserves out of that fund is short-sighted.
Yeah, I'm with you, Adam. I think we kind of got hit with this a little late, and now I don't know if there's much we can do for this year, but yeah, we just got to keep on exploring things because we can't go beyond the 1% for more than this year, I think. I know we have enough for probably next year, but I don't want to use it.
But you can't exhaust that.
Right.
And I do agree that with the commissioner that the buses bring business to town, but they receive 4% of that as well. That's not just us getting income, that's increasing their income. So, I think that argument was a wash.
Yeah. For tonight, just want to try to just do for the board. Would you like to see us continuing to budget for 2026 the amount that we have, that 1.489, or do you want to appropriate a lower amount? We'll definitely be having the conversation regarding different options in the spring before that contract is renewed well in advance. This day, I think the reason that we kind of got a late go at this is because of the time that they spent negotiating this new contract with TransDev. Brian and I were informed about this October.
Yeah, a month ago.
And I raised my concerns there.
So what is the amount that's in alignment with our ridership? That 1.28?
No, that's in line with what the 1%
Okay.
tax is. It's probably somewhere in between.
Okay.
I think 1.2 comes close to what our
What the
ridership
ridership
share of next year's projected budget.
Okay.
I think we're still a little bit off, but a lot less. I think right now 1.2 is at 22%. Our ridership, I believe, was 18%, and their request brings us up to 26%. I'm happy to compromise a little, but I think we need to keep some pressure on them to find other solutions.
And I'll relook at the IGA as well and see how that formula is calculated. And if it does make more sense for us to push towards like ridership percentages, I think we can try to negotiate
I think
that.
that's a strong argument. You know, it's a good metric to use.
Mhm.
You know,
Oh, no, we don't want to stay at that 1.489. I guess that's kind of
Well,
what I'm
I
feeling.
think there's a compromise
Yeah.
somewhere in there, but yeah, you know, we can't be on a path to exhaust in 2 years.
Is the 1% in the 4% in that line item?
no, it's not. So we have 5%, Clark. So we have 1%,
5%,
and then
okay,
the
so
4%. The general fund shows the 4%. The 1% is in the restricted revenue fund.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. It's
Yep.
roughly what, 1.125 million?
Yeah, it shows the 2024 budgeted numbers. Lori, can you go to the left a little bit
Projection.
on that?
If you guys are already coming out of the general fund.
Yeah.
Cover it now.
Well, we have unassigned fund balance that benefited from, it was like a 2022 operating grant they got that we basically received 500 and something $1,000 worth of services, but the operating grant covered like 400,000 of it. So we're able to leverage that unassigned fund balance and roll that forward. So, you know, from the restricted revenue fund, we can absolutely pay for this next year. But just moving forward, if I'm hearing correctly from the board, it sounds like you're okay with the 2026 revenues, but we need to renegotiate these terms and at least present options
Mhm.
to the board for bringing that back within our allocation of new revenues generated by that 1% sales tax, which for next year we just have projected at 1.2. Can you scroll up a little bit for 2024 actuals, Lori?
Yep.
We subsidize everybody.
So
In a lot of different.
Winter
the,
Parks.
the audited
I'm
financials,
sure they do.
the audited financials for 2024 were 1.244 million.
Yeah.
We're expecting 2025, I think, to come in a little higher than that once the audit is completed. But we're just right now we're budgeting for 1.2 interest earnings. We have a cash balance of like 2 million that was shown there on the treasurer's report for the restricted revenue fund. But yeah, we have some bandwidth to maintain these costs for a couple of years. But, you know, we'll present options next spring to see how the board wants to move forward. Because again, you know, Adam, to your
But
point,
then we have no options.
there's other options that are, you know, the ballot was approved with the understanding it's going to go towards trails, transit, and capital projects. So leveraging this fund how it was intended to be, I think it's important. So am I hearing correctly that you want to maintain the 1.489 for next year, but we will be renegotiating with them to look at, because their contract with
I'd rather compromise a little bit and not do the full amount, but
this year or for next
meet
year.
somewhere in the middle between the 1.2 and the 1.489.
Do we have to tell the TAC how much we approved?
So it's based on budget appropriations is how our IGA is laid out.
Okay.
So if
I'd almost say go 50%, halfway.
Halfway.
on that.
1.38
Yeah.
ish.
138, yeah, something, or 137, whatever.
I mean, honestly,
Compromise, we'll give a little bit, but to absorb.
yeah.
The thing that I worry about is that they might cut services. If they,
Well, you know, it can come back to us.
what's that?
It can come back and we can have another discussion on the value of those services, I think. But I think we need to keep pressure on them to look in a more sustainable manner, not just and open our wallets.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't like what TransDev has done, but yeah, I also don't want to lose service.
But I see next year it goes up by another 200. And the next
And
year
there'll
it goes
be
up by-
3% increases from that number for the next 4
Okay.
years.
So
I think services, I wouldn't worry about that. Put some pressure on them.
We can give it a shot.
oh yeah, I'll freeze no.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you guys want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at 50% between the 1.2 and halfway between 1.2 and 1.489.
Yeah, basically 1.38.
Is that what that is?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Yeah, it's just about 200 grand up. So
Okay.
1.385. Yeah.
That's an idea.
Okay, Lori, continue, please.
And count that.
And we can project that in.
Correct.
Based on
Let's see, since our last review, the Conservation Trust Fund is the same. The Capital Equipment Replacement Fund, we hadn't changed anything. Except just note that we've started budgeting for future heavy equipment replacement and also some vehicles. Capital Asset Fund is going to be a very busy place with the debt service, depending on this was for the public works, the COPs, depending on the decision of the board, if we're going to go that route for financing or not. This is all, based on that. And also the purchase of the, oh no. Sorry, I am a little tired. I've been in meetings all day. There's the purchase of 208 Eisenhower that already happened. 360 Railroad is that's a tricky one. I'm gonna have to revisit that one briefly. I could be getting back to you with an update on that because the purchase is now, sort of, but we're gonna finalize in January. But fortunately, I'm in a conference where I can talk to a lot of other professionals to help me make sure we do that because boy, that's just crossing. I'm still gonna consider that a 2025 expenditure. But I'm also gonna reason that out with some more experienced finance directors. Nothing's really changed in the Cozen's Ranch or in, boy, I am tired. There's, yeah, except for, the finishing of the bike park. All of this has not changed since the last review we did. Debt service fund has not changed. This is gonna also be depending on decisions made by the board next year and the bonds that are happening that will be used to fund St. Louis Landing. Water and wastewater. We did the we do have the rendezvous PIF settlement accounted for, and we have the portion of the water fund for the COP payment, the annual payment, the lease payment that the water fund will contribute $100,000 and the wastewater fund will also be contributing the same amount.
So the current amount that we're showing for the COP payment, which, will bring better justification when we go through that process, but it's showing a 2/3 payment from the general fund and then a 1/3 payment that's divided between the two enterprise funds for water and wastewater.
Oh. Hold on. Capital. No, further up. Dang it. I always go the wrong way. Sorry. Not restrict. Come on, where'd it go? Well, that's recorded in the debt service fund.
Yep. That's included in the 601 transfer.
There it is. Sorry. 401's $401,600 from the general fund, 100,000 from wastewater, and 100,000 from the water fund. So wastewater fund, except for the projects and the cleanup of the public works share of the funding for, or the payment for the COPs. These are the same projects that Michael listed earlier, the chemical grouting, the public works design, and the I&I. And then Fraser Housing Authority, I will be honest to say that this fund, when it was set up, was not complete. And I've been working on completing that so that we can show clear movement of the funds. So we do have the transfer in from the general fund. This is also set up as
The bridge loan.
yeah, it's the bridge loan. But this is also set up. I had to do this on your, it's set up as a liability too, to show that the general fund is loaning the Fraser Housing Authority, but there's a liability. This is in your equity. The liability is from the Fraser Housing Authority to pay the general fund back. Again, with the contracted agreement, that will take, be done over time, but that's set up. So the transfer in from the general fund is the revenue that we're using right now. And then down in 6040700, I do have $693,680 in construction costs. When I get back from the conference, I'll be spending time because I have to go through the invoices to audit the amounts that were not eligible for grant reimbursement. So that number is going to, before December 3rd, and I will definitely let the board know. That number is going to increase, which will actually bring the expenditures from St. Louis Landing down. Those numbers are going to be smoothed, well, not really smoothed over, I'm sorry, that's the wrong term. Those numbers are going to change because I'm going to audit and I will reallocate the correct amounts down to 6040700 that will be applicable to the $5,400,000 loan. So some updates will be coming, but that's about all that I'll be working on, is making sure that I get that bridge loan accounted for correctly.
Any questions about the budget?
I have some questions on that particular subject, if it's okay.
Sure.
So Lori, it's Clark. Hi, how are you? Sorry you're tired.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Hang in
tired.
there. Why is there's a separate budget for the housing authority, right? The Fraser Housing Authority?
That's it.
It's its own fund.
It's its own fund, right? So
Yeah.
why are the expenditures for the bond principal, St. Louis Landing, it's 404811, 404812, and 404821 and 404822 bond interest? I believe that's in the town's expenditures, not in the housing authority
The debt
expenditures.
service fund?
That's
It's on your debt service fund under expenditures, but it's
This
not the
is
town's debt. It's
Clark.
the housing. Go
Clark,
ahead,
this
sorry.
is fund accounting.
I understand.
And it's not fund accounting. The debt service, whenever the town is taking on debt, it's going to go through the debt service fund. as we go back, let me
Whenever
go.
the town or the Fraser Housing Authority is taking
Yeah,
on debt,
it's
it has to go
the
through the debt
if
service.
the town were to, okay, the town is going to take the COP for, excuse me, possibly choose to do COP funding for the public works facility. Guess what's in the debt service fund? Both of those, because
Yeah,
they're,
but that makes complete sense because that is for a town facility. But the Fraser Housing Authority is the one issuing bonds. They're the ones that held a public hearing to issue bonds and met last planning commission or last board meeting. They have their own fund. I don't believe in the town is not responsible for the bonds associated with St. Louis Landing. That's been made abundantly clear time and time again. So I don't understand in fund accounting for the Fraser Housing Authority why the expenditures associated with the Fraser Housing Authority's debt service on its project aren't in that fund.
GASPA, Government Accounting Standards Board, as set forth, I'm sorry, we were just reviewing that today. The accounting for debt, you'll notice that down here, 4040915, transfer to capital asset public works. It comes into the debt service fund. The transfer, whether I use all of the 33 million or not, we're anticipating that we're going to have 35% estimated completion through 2026. This transfer from debt service is going to the capital asset fund, which is the town capital asset fund. The next transfer down, transfer to the Fraser Housing Authority as a separate fund from the 33 million that we are anticipating for the bond. The 33, we anticipated a transfer 60% estimated completion in 2026 to be $16,697,460. So I've shown through the debt service fund, let's go up here. There's the
revenues,
33.5 million bond or COP proceeds. Sorry, like I said, I'm looking at this very tired.
40, 3,500.
Yeah, that one. There's the COP. This is the bond proceeds, but part of the bond proceeds go to the capitalized bond interest to pay some of the capitalized bond interest, and part of the bond also goes to the debt service fund reserve, which is actually an expenditure. This transfer to the debt service fund reserve is a reserve to be held in the debt service fund for the bonds. So basically, when you're doing the debt service, I'm showing where the revenue is coming from, and then I'm also showing exactly which entity, which other fund is going to be using the amounts.
So for government funding, per state law, it has to come into the account. It has to come into our budget somehow. It has to come through the debt service fund for it to come into account before it could be transferred to the Fraser Housing Authority. Once phase one is built and done, we're not going to hold any more funds in our debt service fund. It's all going to be revenues and expenditures to the Fraser Housing Authority to account for rental income, and then paying those payments to pay off the bonds. So it's like she said, she's meeting the requirements for government accounting principles, which are required for these things. Anything that requires any cleanup, typically we're gonna have some cleanup with some items that maybe need to move around a little bit. That's what we go through the auditing process for, which they will finalize all that at that point. But this just allows the funds to come into the town budget before it could be transferred out to the housing authority.
I understand. You understand my point that you've got a fund for Fraser Housing Authority and I don't know, it seems like to me it's an independent entity that's separate apart from the town.
It
And it
is
could have its
separate.
own debt service fund in the Fraser Housing Authority and take the debt in directly to the Fraser Housing Authority and not funnel it through the town. It makes me very concerned to see debt service for those bonds on the town's budget. So that's all. And thanks, Lori. I appreciate it. Sorry to
Sure.
drag you on.
I know these budget meetings are tough, guys. I know everybody's tired, but it's hugely important, and I actually really appreciate Clark digging into this stuff.
Sure,
Because
it's
we kind of live in it to some degree. You know, we've talked about all these projects. We kind of know the ins and outs, but explaining it on a budget is different. And I know I don't ask a million questions because I've kind of gone through it and asked those questions, but having somebody from the public ask is great. So,
it's
yeah, I appreciate everybody who's worked on this.
it's always helpful to have eyes on it.
For sure. Okay.
I just have a request that we can maintain a schedule on these next items.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Budget always takes a while.
Yeah, I know. I worthwhile, but we are at 9:30.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Not everybody loves numbers as much as Clark and me.
Oh, I've been banging my head against these numbers all.
It's a big budget and there's a lot of big things in it, so I get it.
Okay. So we don't need to make any action on this, correct? At this point, because it's a draft.
You're just gonna be continuing it.
It's a draft for continued review by the board. And then prior to, the final, well, I'll let Michael talk. I'm not making any sense.
We've got
anymore.
notes. I've got all the
Yeah,
notes for
I've
the
got-
budget. We'll make the changes like for the transit services operation and maintenance line item. We will make that change and that'll be reflected in the next budget. In addition to the 20,000, for the Winter Park Film Festival and any of the notes that I have
Do we
here.
need a motion to continue?
And the cleanup of the expenditures for the Fraser Housing Authority.
So within the public hearing, you still have 2 more items to discuss.
Okay,
So-
you don't continue just.
Right,
We'll-
so
we'll
I would
continue at the end of it, right?
I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing regarding the 2026 Town of Fraser and Downtown Development Authority 2026 budgets to the December 3rd. Oh, we're not through that part yet. Sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
So, yeah, we're gonna continue the public hearing after all 3 items on this agenda, correct? And then the vehicle and sales rents. No,
We could act on that one, right?
yeah, so we'll continue the public hearing after this next item and then we'll reopen a public hearing, I think, for that. Okay. All right, thank you, Lori.
I love her.
So now we're on to 2026 Downtown Development Authority. Combined budget message and budget. Sarah Catanzarite.
Mayor, Board of Trustees, Sarah Catanzarite, Assistant Town Manager and Interim Executive Director for the Downtown Development Authority. Oh. If I can pull up the right document here. So this is I realize that's kind of hard to see, so I apologize. This is the same budget for the Downtown Development Authority that was presented as part of an update at our last board meeting. So there are no changes that have been made. Included in your packet is also the annual budget message to go with the budget itself. I prepared an eloquent speech, which I am prepared to forego due to the hour, and address any questions you may have. But As I mentioned at the last board meeting, the Downtown Development Authority, I think they definitely had a year of meeting with a lot of different stakeholders, weighing in on a lot of ongoing plans, like the town comprehensive plan, the wayfinding plan. They met with Grand County Economic Development that's got a resources and incubator project going on right now that they weighed in on. They also explored a lot of different district enhancements that really, for whatever reason, just didn't make sense to move forward with at this time. So I think the board has been very engaged. I think they've been very thoughtful about trying to use their money well and making sure that what they move forward with is in fact in line with the larger town's plans as well as their own plan of development for the downtown area. And definitely did not want to rush to spend money just to spend money. So a lot of our money from last year's budget is rolling over into this year's budget, which will allow them to perhaps make some more significant contributions towards projects. We can revisit things like signage as the wayfinding planning moves forward. They are looking at a few different initiatives for next year, one of them being believe they're calling it a coming up conference series, kind of focused on entrepreneurship, networking, wealth building, things like that people are pretty excited about. We're continuing to look at the railroad station area signage. Knowing that things were potentially in the works with that property, they held off on some other possible enhancements, but have been very interested in doing work kind of around that railroad station area with that increase in station rail and kind of what people were saying earlier in relation to the discussion of acquiring that property. Of right now you come through on the train and there's just not a whole lot right there that's like, welcome to Fraser, this is a cool place. So that's definitely one area that they're looking at. I think as development possibilities come to be along Clayton Court, there's going to be a much larger role for the Downtown Development Authority in terms of helping some of that development along with the tax increment incentives that they can offer to developers. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the budget message or the budget, but didn't want to kind of belabor points that were discussed at the last meeting.
Any questions, guys? Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Cool.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, now I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing regarding the 2026 Town of Fraser and Downtown Development Authority 2026 budgets to the December 3rd, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, now we're going to, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing from November, no? We're good? Okay. November 5th, 2025 regarding ordinance 529, amending chapter 19 to regulate vehicle sales and outdoor storage. This is Garrett to present.
Thank you.
So
Oh yeah.
moved.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
Covered all of it.
All right, we're good.
Everyone's a little brain dead.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Board. Garrett Scott, Town Planner. I'll try to keep this brief, but please feel free to interject with questions. The ordinance on the agenda this evening would amend Chapter 19 to add regulations related to vehicle sales and outdoor storage. So in recent years, there has been a proliferation of unregulated vehicle sales and long-term vehicle storage on a few specific properties with high visibility from Highway 40. Town staff has also observed other more isolated similar incidents or occurrences on other properties, generally within our business and Riverwalk zone districts. The police department is unable to adequately regulate this activity with our code as currently written, which is why we are bringing this amendment forward, which seeks to balance the needs of both property owners with broader goals of maintaining community character and reducing visual clutter. So next, I'd like to speak to what are our current regulations as it pertains to these items. So within Chapter 7, specifically Articles 1 and 2, there are regulations pertaining to nuisances. Sometimes staff refers to this as the town's nuisance ordinance. And within this section of our code, nuisances are defined to include things such as vehicles that are in a state of disassembly or disrepair, or vehicles that are unlicensed or unregistered. If you have more than one unlicensed or unregistered vehicle on your property, that's considered a nuisance and can therefore be abated uh, under our nuisance ordinance. However, this language creates exemptions where vehicles that are not in a state of disassembly or disrepair, or vehicles that are licensed and registered, would not be considered a nuisance if there's several of those vehicles on a property. The definition of nuisance also includes other things that could generally fall under outdoor storage, but these are things like abandoned and discarded objects that clearly don't belong outside, like appliances and mattresses and indoor furniture, things like accumulation of household garbage, etc. So why is the town not tackling this through amending the nuisance ordinance? Why are we doing this through our land use code? And the reason for this is that there are legitimate uses that require long-term vehicle storage. For example, actual car dealerships, rental car facilities, companies that have shuttle services, delivery operations, vehicle towing operations, vehicle service and repair centers, etc. So these uses are generally either allowed by right in our zone districts or required to have a conditional use permit. And they should be viewed as separate and distinct from nuisances as it relates to vehicle storage. So that kind of establishes the why we are here. Before I proceed further, this is a public hearing. This ordinance went to the Planning Commission in September and they recommended approval. The Planning Commission just provided one condition of approval, that staff shall evaluate removing the words goods, material, and merchandise from the definition of outdoor storage, and I will touch on that later. Again, this is a public hearing. Public notice was provided as shown on the screen here, originally scheduled for November 5th, 2 weeks ago, but you all, the board, continued that public hearing to today. So next I'll talk about what this ordinance does. It adds definitions in our land use code for these two terms, heavy equipment and vehicles. Vehicles are inclusive of the term heavy equipment, but heavy equipment, generally something like a construction equipment or something using a, diesel engine, farm equipment, etc. Vehicles more broad, it includes motorcycles, golf carts, boats, trailers, etc. This ordinance would also modify an existing definition that we have in our code. Outdoor storage is currently defined in our code. The following changes are being proposed with this ordinance. First, the length of outdoor storage is being increased from 24 hours to 48 hours. This is because it matches the Town of Winter Park's definition for outdoor storage areas. They have a 48-hour time period under that definition. And given that we share our police department with the Town of Winter Park, it makes sense to have the same time period as them for consistency and enforcement. The other thing that this ordinance does, it expands this definition to create exceptions for the following uses: licensed food trucks or other mobile vending units that have gone through that approval process through the town. Those are not considered outdoor storage. Those businesses that need to store vehicles long-term that I mentioned previously, again, things like a rental car facility, a repair shop, and things like that. And then it also notes that any storage of goods, material, and merchandise that are clearly related to a permitted commercial use on the property are not considered outdoor storage. So the reason why we are adding these exceptions within the definition of outdoor storage is that it matches the town's current enforcement practices. When we discussed this with the Planning Commission, we went down a few specific examples of properties in town. I will just mention the Bear Dance Hot Tubs off of County Road 72 that stores hot tubs outside their building. And I think it is not the intention of staff to bring down the hammer on that sort of activity. That is not a problem that we are seeking to address with this ordinance. The Planning Commission and Board could seek to add further regulations that would, for example, require screening or enclosure for things like that. But at this time, staff just frankly doesn't want to touch that. We are trying to deal with a separate issue. Are there any questions with that? Okay, I'll continue. So another thing that this ordinance does is it adds what are called supplemental use regulations to outdoor storage as well as vehicle sales. So outdoor storage, it's currently a use in our schedule of uses. This brief table at the bottom here shows that it's a conditional use in the business and riverwalk zones permitted in the trade industry zone. But we are adding some additional requirements and regulations on top of this that specify that residential properties are allowed one RV, outdoor storage on commercial properties shouldn't be visible from a public street, and any vehicles or heavy equipment that are placed into outdoor storage must be registered to the property owner. And property owners can seek exceptions to these, but they are subject to approval of a conditional use permit, which is planning commission and board approval.
So so if I have an RV on my property, that's my parents, I can't have that.
No, you can. You are allowed. Residential properties are allowed an RV. Yes.
But if it's not mine, not registered to me.
There is no language in the ordinance on registration of the RV on a residential property.
I thought you just said that, no?
It has to be registered, but not to you.
Yes.
It says
It
it has
doesn't
to be
need to-
registered to the property owner.
Because it has to be registered to the property owner, so that would be me.
That's only specific areas, right, Garrett?
That I will pull up the ordinance language to verify this, but I believe that is
You
specific.
can have an RV, I'm just asking.
No, I understand.
One of my concerns is that there are any costs associated.
We're not gonna
Somebody to go to the planner with conditional use.
Garrett, I don't think this requires a conditional use process. We're kind of providing administrative approval if it is part of the actual business and how the business license is approved. That's okay. There's no conditional use process for things like hot tubs at bear dance spas, things of that nature.
That's correct. I will pull up the language of the ordinance here momentarily. So just so we're looking at the exact text of the ordinance, because
Okay,
the specifics matter, what was up on the slide was more of a generality.
okay.
So if we could look at item 2 right here, and specifically the last sentence. Properties in residential zone districts may place a residential vehicle in outdoor storage and only one recreational vehicle at a time. It doesn't speak to registration of that recreational vehicle being, registered to the property owner. The
More the focus, Katie, is on the commercial properties.
Okay.
Yeah, so I recognize that item 1 does say any vehicles placed in outdoor storage must be registered to the owner of the property.
Right.
However,
That's what I'm concerned about.
Sure. We would interpret that as, paragraph 2 or item 2 supersedes that. So broadly speaking, vehicles that are in long-term outdoor storage on a property must be registered to the property owner.
What about renters?
Or a residential tenant who is named in a valid lease. That is in that statement as well. So again, I think item 2 is kind of
Covered
additive.
that, okay. I'm like
And-
asleep, dude. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. And then this is that third requirement related to non-residential properties. Basically not being allowed to place anything into outdoor storage. Again, with those exceptions for businesses that need to store vehicles long-term and businesses that store their goods or merchandise outside, and it's clearly related to that business, like the hot tub example.
I'm wondering about items that aren't merchandise, thinking along Easton Drive. There's a lot of stuff.
I'm struggling to think of.
You talking about like the J&L property?
Talk about the distillery.
No, on the Easton, on the distillery properties, there's a lot of stuff.
Just stuff.
There's
Yeah.
a storage container, but then there's also a lot of
Grills.
and liquid containers that are 500 gallons or so and stuff like that. That, I mean,
the street side of that building is not the prettiest.
I mean, I guess.
But the alley side is very nice.
So I did pull up Street View. I understand what you're talking about. Again, this Street View is a couple years old, and I don't think I've driven down or walked down Easton personally in a while, but
And I hate to,
That's
as
nice.
as an example.
Yeah.
But
Is it bad?
it's,
But-
yeah, it's,
We can definitely
it's a
tighten,
backyard.
we
Yeah.
can definitely
On the street.
tighten it up and
Yeah.
have
Both sides storage now. And his building's storage. Wasn't supposed to be. And that's, is what, that's indoors and not public view on the street and that kind of stuff.
so again,
I guess I'm wondering how this applies to a little bit larger than just the vehicles.
yes. So again, there is exceptions created for anything that is clearly related to and incidental to that business use. Just looking at Street View for this specific property, I understand your point and that some of these things are not related to the operation of that business. And then therefore that falls under either unpermitted outdoor storage or, depending on the degree and severity and maybe the types of items out there, that could be considered a nuisance. So I would rely on our police department, our code enforcement officers to address that situation. Again,
we can address things like screening requirements that you want to have for certain businesses. We're really taking care of I think a large problem with this, and we can always drill down from there. Yeah.
Should be a
I just want to talk about one place, Chief, you had a concern about, but I think it's addressed here in the ordinance. Can you go to the top of, or to the middle point of page, what is this, 9 in the ordinance there, Garrett?
Yes, 1 second.
Where you define outdoor storage. So storage of vehicles or parts thereof, from towing operations, vehicle repair parts, rental car operations, and similar uses where frequent moving and long-term storage of vehicles is necessary as part of the operation of the principal use. So you had talked about concerns about the Amtrak station. I think that's part of the operation of their typical use is of people parking there for a little while, right?
Right.
Because you had a concern about enforcement of that. So I think that's covered here. Unless you have any other concerns.
You know, I totally get the need for this. My concern is the unintended consequences that are going to come from this ordinance. Despite what Winter Parks Code says, I think 48 hours is far too short of a time period to be realistic with the citizens of our community. I think it should be something like 15 days because let me give you an example. You have a friend that comes to your house. You guys decide to go on a camping trip for a couple of weeks. Technically, he would be in violation by having a vehicle not registered to the homeowner for a period of 14 days. That concerns me because I don't want to get involved in that drama.
You mean 48 hours?
In 48 hours, yes. So I'm also concerned that there will be encouragement for unequal enforcement of the law based on who you are and not what you have, because, you know, we obviously know where the problems are, but I do worry that this could create a situation where we are forced to deal with somebody who, by and large, is doing the right thing. And because of a neighborhood complaint or something like that, we're forced to take action. And I think, you know, while we can encourage people to come to the town board to air grievances and request changes and that kind of thing, the people getting the negative publicity from that will be your local law enforcement officers. So those are my concerns, but I wholeheartedly agree with Garrett, and he and I work together a lot on this, that something needs to be done different than what it's being done today.
So, Chief, your request is the 48 hours to move to 15 days?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, 48 hours, you barely know a vehicle is there if it's 48 hours. But I do want to avoid
a neighborhood problem growing into an enforcement issue.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think most rental leases have like guest visit clauses of like 2 weeks or 15 days and stuff.
Yeah. So the enforcement, 15 days could allow the enforcement to really focus on areas that really needs
I
enforcement.
think so. I mean, we all know what the problem vehicles are. So
So it's not, so even if it's registered, you can't have it on your property.
If there's more than one.
Car.
Isn't that it? Yeah. More than one vehicle.
yeah, and I think the additional thing, Garrett makes sense with what he was saying about paragraph 1 versus paragraph 2, but just having been in municipal court a lot, I would think that our prosecutor is going to look at those equally. And so there maybe needs to be some kind of an exemption in there for people like Katie who are storing a motorhome, or your parents come from out of town. You know, your parents come from out of town and park their motorhome on your property for a little while. I don't know how you do that, but I don't think the way it's written right now is going to make it easy to enforce for somebody just like Katie's situation.
I mean, it's only,
Well, I think the solution is a conditional use permit, which incurs costs and process and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's red tape we want to avoid.
Yeah.
but the only residential properties this applies to are those in visibility of Highway 40, Eisenhower, and Clayton Court, correct? Everything else defaults to the nuisance code. So you have the ability to have, unless you have visibility from Eisenhower, Highway 40, or Clayton Court, you have the ability to have a trailer, and you also have the ability to have one unregistered vehicle or trailer on your property as well. So it's really just tightening up the areas of high visibility. Anything else, and if you want, we can say Eisenhower Drive on one side of the tracks if you want to. Commercial districts versus the residential areas.
I think, you know, I'm okay with the concept. I think there should be an easier way to validate somebody that has 2 vehicles if they're going to have this for 6 months or something like that. It should be a registry, not a conditional use permit. I mean, and that, you know, I think it seems like a lot of process and expense for having an extra vehicle on your property for whatever reason.
I mean, during the summer, I have 4 vehicles at my house. My kids drive, I drive.
Yeah, but they're moving.
Right.
The issue is
Why wouldn't it just be unregistered vehicles? I mean, Colorado has like the highest license plates in the country. I pay $1,400 a year to have my plates on. If I pay that, I should be able to park wherever I want to, on my own property especially. It's plated, it's on my property, that's fine. If you're paying for it, I don't know.
When Todd everybody was wanting to take the bus and walk everywhere, they're gonna leave their cars parked now, I said, here.
Yeah, but they're not
I'm
going to
just saying,
park
if I'm from
for
the state of Colorado
for
and
more than
property
15
taxes,
days.
and it's my property,
Well,
I'll park wherever I want to.
Part of I live on, I know some of the people that live there don't live their car for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Because they go with their work buddies. You can see their cars from 40. Technically.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got cars that sit in my driveway for months at a time because the folks that work there all take one truck for work and they leave their cars sitting
I have
on
2.
my truck.
Yeah, this isn't
Yeah.
right.
I understand what you're trying to do, and I like the idea. Yeah, there's a lot of junk everywhere,
Yeah, I was excited at first.
right?
Yeah. Could we just limit it to business and Riverwalk districts? Although you guys are in, like, your house is in,
So.
just right.
What's considered a recreational vehicle? 4-wheelers?
Oh yeah, that too.
That's all defined in the code. It includes those different things.
Why can't I have all that in my front yard?
I've got snowmobiles in my front yard.
Only if you're in visibility of these locations.
Aren't you on Eisenhower?
Yeah, I mean, you could remove Eisenhower from here if you wanted to.
Oh boy. This is a lot of changes at 10
A
o'clock.
lot of changes.
I would just maybe interject, staff would be happy to continue this public hearing and bring it back December.
So the focus is addressed for residential properties and their vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or non-running vehicles.
Exactly what I brought up at planning commission.
So you're allowed to have one
Rage, right?
registered
Don't wanna be
vehicle.
told what
If
to
it's
do
taken
with it.
apart and disrepaired, there's parts all over the yard, you can't have that. It has
Yeah.
to be within like a
That's
screened
fine.
area.
I was really excited when it was because everything's registered pretty much except for like who really registers a trailer. I mean, all of them. All of them. You know.
I do.
You guys want
All of them. All of them.
Yeah. All right. We appreciate the efforts. But yeah, let's think about it some more.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you have more than one trailer though, they're not all.
All right, so I would motion to continue the public hearing regarding the ordinance 529 amending chapter 19 to regulate vehicle sales and outdoor storage to the December 3rd, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So then we don't have to close the public hearing, or we
Yell it
do?
out.
Okay, so we just continued that. So we just continued all three. So now we can move on to updates. Fraser forward, comprehensive plan. Good.
I'll just keep this very brief. Our draft of the comprehensive plan is now public. You all should have received an email from me last week with that information, but it's here in the packet as well as a link to a survey. Please read the plan at your leisure and either fill out that survey or email me or Alan directly. We're also happy to meet with any of you all to discuss the plan in detail. We're taking public feedback on the plan through December 19th, and then we'll close it off, and staff and our consultants will compile that feedback and make changes as needed before bringing it back for adoption early next year.
And I would just add, it's really long. It does have a lot of pages with just pretty pictures, but it's 176 pages. And I think it is important that we actually sit and read it. I've read about half of it at this point. But we got some good feedback at the planning commission. You know, kind of saying this is the marketing pitch, this is the sales pitch for Fraser, so it should be just kind of adjusted accordingly. But overall, what I've read is pretty good. So just take notes as you're reading it. And
You get a screen reader.
Call me and I'll read it to you.
You gonna read it to them?
it's adorable.
I'll put you to sleep though.
Any other updates? Board?
No.
Staff?
Oh, I went to the new Retrocade
Oh yeah.
arcade. Super cute, fun. Although the owner smoked me at pinball, so
He was a
wasn't-
professional,
was not even close.
right? Okay.
Hello.
Move to adjourn.
I moved to adjourn.
Yeah, Katie. Second.
All in favor?
Yay.
Bye.
Any
Good
opposed?
night, y'all. Good
Night.
work.
9:58.